Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of exciting things with microphones because I get to be a ring announcer and cage announcer, and I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two co-hosts who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, Mark Prio. Mark, what's up, man?
What's up, boys? I'm back. I've watched everything this week. I've updated the rankings from what I missed last week. I've even come with a beverage because I'm tired of watching you sip alcohol in front of me while I have nothing. So we are prepped this week. We are ready to go.
And now introducing from Florida, the Sunshine State, La Pesadilla de Nicaragua, Omar Artola. What's up, my friend?
Well done. So, Mark, after I don't even know how many fucking episodes of this man calling my name, me and him finally realized that hasn't been necessarily saying it 100% right. So we worked it out.
Oh, in my head, I was just like, did they change it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we worked it out, and we've corrected it, and I feel just as fucking I've been listening to him say it over and over, and I've never noticed anything wrong. And then the other day I was listening to the episode, and I was like, I don't think that's how it is.
Wait, apparently I've been saying it. I've been saying it wrong on two levels. Number one, I was saying the word is, Omar told me, Nicaraguense, and I've been saying Nicaraguense, so like the Italian version, Nicaraguense.
The New York Italian version.
Right.
Yeah. Italy,
But that also, that's also just the wrong way to say it. I use Google to translate it literally. If for those who don't know right now, who are listening are like, what the fuck? Omar's nickname is the Nicaraguan Nightmare because he's half Nicaraguan. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, no, this is accurate.
Okay. Silliness. Let's move on. I'm also sipping on some scotch tonight. A little monkey shoulder. Delicious. This is like the bourbon drinker's scotch right here, if you don't know. I'm not an alcoholic.
Well, wait, is it bourbon? Because it doesn't sound like it's bourbon. So how is it?
It is scotch.
Drinker's Scotch.
But it's just, I'm really not a scotch guy, and my buddy got this for me, and he was like, I know that you don't love scotch and that you like bourbon more, so
I see what you're saying.
You'll like this.
I see what you're saying. Okay, it does make sense.
I still think you should watch that show, Drink Masters, on Netflix. You should sit down, get your 21-inch iMac in the right position, and watch that series of Drink Masters.
They make like custom cocktails, like a cocktail competition show.
I honestly can't even explain to you how hardcore that show is. I thought making cocktails was just the dude flipping the shit, making it look good. This is completely different. I can't properly explain it to you. I just recommend you watch it, and then you'll understand how I can't explain it.
Mark, do you have a go-to cocktail? Like, what's your favorite slash
What
go-to?
I make for the show when I bring something is generally just bourbon lemonade, just because I can make it in 1 second.
Nice.
But I would say my go-to cocktail is more so something like bourbon, bitters, mint, like a squeeze of lemon, not lemonade, like more bourbony than this mix ends up being.
I like it. Yeah. Omar, you don't drink, I know.
I don't, but I do enjoy me some frozen cocktails with some fruit in it.
Okay.
Dude, when you're on a beach, I'm not someone who cares about that. Hit me with a Miami Vice if I'm on a beach. Immediately.
I'm usually drinking if I'm on vacation, if I do drink. And sometimes I drink because Francesca is otherwise just going to be drinking alone, and it's not always fun for her. So I tend to drink every once in a while, and it seems to be, as of recently, rum apparently is my thing. So a lot of, frozen margaritas. That's my shit. Little strawberry frozen margarita.
All right, boys. This is not a cocktail podcast.
It could be.
Let's get on track here. It could be. Yes, I know. All right, well, we have quite the rundown for this show, folks. We're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment on the marquee. We're going to talk about fights from this past weekend's PFL finale for the season for 2022. We're going to go into our retroactive Prio rankings, find out from last week's UFC who rose and who fell in Mark's very own rankings system that he tracks. We're going to go inside the MMA sphere with Omar and find out what's going on in the headlines of the MMA world. And then we're going to jump into some previews of this coming weekend. One is putting on 2 events, as well as UFC action with UFC Fight Night Thompson versus Holland. And then we're going to end with a little bit of trivia. But boys, before we get to any fight talk, let us first thank our audience. If you guys are watching this right now on YouTube, thank you so much, first of all. If you can do us a favor, if you've been liking what you've been watching, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the bell thing so that you get notified whenever we drop a new video. We love that. Of course, the thing we love most is some thoughtful comments down below. If you like any of our takes, let us know. If you disagree with any of our takes, let us know. We always engage right back with you guys in the comments, and we look forward to that every week. If you want audio only, hey, we got you there. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, find us on social media. You can find us at all the places at @&new_MMA show. Let's go. Okay. On the marquee. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Larissa Pacheco, who this past weekend in New York City at Madison Square Garden defeated Kayla Harrison by unanimous decision. The scorecards read 48-47 across the board. All 3 judges saw it the same way. Mark, let me toss it over to you first. What was your reaction of Pacheco getting it done and handing Kayla Harrison her first professional loss?
Larissa Pacheco fucking did it. What an upset. I freaking went on and on this show about how good she was and how she shouldn't be overlooked and all this, and I should have just freaking pulled the damn trigger, and I could have looked pretty smart right now, but that was hard to do, fighting Kayla Harrison. But, yeah, props to Pacheco, man. She spent a large portion of that fight on the mat, and she won a lot of the time that she was down there. She just stayed active. She was active with her jiu-jitsu. She threatened with it whenever she could to create some space. She was cracking Kayla with shots from bottom every chance she got. Any time that Kayla moved in a way that left her head exposed, she was just eating shots and had to kind of dive back and get her head buried again. And Larissa never settled down there. Like, she was always working to find a way to get back up, even as the fight went long and they were getting a little tired. And I expected maybe that was going to wane a bit and Kayla would start being able to hold her down. It never did. Larissa Pacheco battled for all 25 minutes. If anyone got tired, I think it was Kayla. She was the one who was looking like she was kind of trying to tap into something more, and she couldn't get it out of herself. And, you know, give Kayla credit. She went for it as much as she was able. She even got a takedown in the 5th. And, you know, if she could have been a little more active on top, those cards might have gone her way. So it's not like she got handled in the fight. She was in the fight. But she had a hard time with Larissa. She was not safe on the feet. And the strides that Pacheco made in her ground game really gave Kayla a lot of problems. And I scored it the same way the judges did. I gave Kayla rounds 1 and 3, and I gave Pacheco 2, 4, 5. And I didn't know how it was going to go when the cards were getting read. Part of me was like, they're going to give this thing to Kayla. But I was really happy to see that it went Pacheco's way, as I thought it should have. And what a huge moment for her career. Just quickly, this is a girl who started her career 10-0 with 10 finishes. Came to the UFC with a lot of hype. Got her shot against Jessica Andrade at 135 pounds is what she used to cut to at that time. Gets choked out by a guillotine. Gets another shot. It's Germaine de Randamie. De Randamie puts her out with strikes. And she's out of the UFC. 2 fights in, 2 fights out. She picks up 1 win, ends up in the PFL. Kayla beats her 5 straight rounds. So it's like, you know, for her and for most, it was like kind of like, maybe Pacheco's not going to be much in this sport. And not to her, man. She packed on size. She got even more dangerous. She worked on her overall game, rattled off 7 out of 8 wins, and now just caps it off with $1 million and a win over Kayla Harrison. So, hell of a night for Larissa Pacheco, and a tough pill to swallow for Kayla, of course. I'm sure she thinks that was not the best performance that she could give. I don't think it looked like it was. But, hey, these things happen in MMA. It was not her night. You'd hope maybe it's something that's going to make her better as well going forward, and we'll see what happens next.
Omar, Kayla Harrison, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist in judo, was seeking her 3rd PFL championship, headlining the card. And she faced Pacheco 2 previous times, besting her both times. What was your reaction to Pacheco, I guess, sort of getting the monkey off her back, getting over that hump and getting it done, defeating the Goliath of Kayla Harrison?
I think for me, when we were watching Ronda Rousey and her run, the one thing that was, in my opinion, very obvious was her game was to get you down to the ground, get a flip out of you or whatever, and then attempt some kind of submission. Kayla Harrison's game is slightly different, but the objective, I think, is relatively the same, where she wants to get her hands on you, perform some kind of takedown, and then work her way to a submission. The problem with those games is that if you can stop one of those advances, then a lot of other things tend to get exposed. So for Ronda Rousey, when she was fighting Holly Holm, and she couldn't even grab onto Holly Holm, let alone take her down, Holly Holm was piecing that girl up, and it exposed a lot of her striking flaws and, you know, the infamous head movement and yada, yada, yada. Kayla Harrison at this point I thought was fairly similar because she didn't look as good as she normally did, she normally does, although this wasn't a complete trouncing as the Ronda Rousey one was. It's very different. But Kayla Harrison got stuffed many times. She got a couple of takedowns in there, especially in the first round. She hit a nice otogari. I think, what is it, otogari? Or shotogari?
Osotogari.
Osotogari. And it was beautiful. She got down on the ground, was able to control. But Pacheco, like Mark was saying, was fighting back, was threatening from the bottom, attacking from the bottom with heavy, heavy hands. I think the real thing, though, was when Pacheco was able to spend the majority of the rest of that fight fighting off Kayla Harrison's advances, it, one, burned out Kayla Harrison, I think, but it also changed the momentum of the fight as well, because you saw Kayla Harrison stepping back, moving back, and Pacheco just stomping forward and stalking her for a good majority of that fight. I was really impressed with Pacheco. I don't know. This is, again, one of those performances where I don't know if it was Larissa Pacheco flipping a switch and finding a way to finally make that matchup make sense, or if it was something that Kayla Harrison was missing that night. Either way, Kayla Harrison looked really defeated by the end of that, because I think she knows she lost that fight. I don't think this is one of those, personally, I don't think this is one of those fights that was difficult to see who won that fight. As tough as the fight was, I thought it was very clear who won that fight. Personally, I had Kayla Harrison losing 4-1. I gave that, that third round? The third round to Pacheco as well. It was a close round, but I thought Pacheco did enough to be on top, and she was just more aggressive. I think there are arguments to be made for that. But either way, even if you give it the 3 rounds, I also thought that it was still very clear that she won that fight. So I give credit to Pacheco, man. She really gutted that fight out. She really fought to win against somebody who's beaten her twice, which I think, as we've seen recently, is sometimes a very big mental hump to overcome. So credit to her. And Kayla Harrison will be back. That woman is absolutely talented, physically phenomenal. There's no reason to think that she goes down from here. You know, it's a moment that she's got to take in. I'm sure it's not the first time she's ever lost something in her life, but it's going to sting, and I hope it motivates her and it doesn't defeat her.
Guys, do you feel like, I mean, the parallel is there, you know, the last time there was an American real juggernaut in women's MMA was Ronda Rousey, who was also an Olympic medalist in judo. Something about this judo background, lightning has struck twice. Now, when Ronda lost to Holly Holm, it kind of just like shattered the aura of Ronda Rousey. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it for her journey, but there you have it. Now Kayla Harrison has suffered her first loss, tasted defeat for the first time as a professional. Do you think it's going to be a similar kind of a deal as Ronda, where other girls are going to be less intimidated by her? They're going to say, well, the aura is kind of gone, or the blueprint is out of how to beat her, or do you think she's going to bounce back from this better than what happened with Rousey?
I'm sure that is a little bit of a factor. You know, I doubt it's zero. I'm sure girls are like, wow, look at Kayla Harrison. She's beatable. I bet I could do that too, so on and so on. That's just the nature of the sport. But I don't think the similarities are too much. I think Ronda really had this aura of invincibility that was shattered not only by a loss, but by a knockout where she looked bad. And I also don't think Ronda was necessarily like a grinder. Like, she was very much about the quick win. Kayla, sure, she had an aura of invincibility too, but it wasn't near the same as Ronda's, near the same buzz, hype, anything. She lost, but it's a close fight. It's a decision. It's not any knockout like that. And she grinds. Like, she's not someone who needs that, like, if I don't beat you in the first 2 minutes,
right,
you're going to get confident because you're like, wow, you're surviving. Like, she can beat you for 25 minutes if she has to. So I don't think it's quite the same type of thing. And I think she can make some small adjustments and win that fight. So I don't think it's on the same level necessarily. And I do expect Kayla to bounce back. Yeah. Not saying that she's ever going to like beat Cyborg or Amanda, which we were never sure of, and we don't know if she'll ever even fight those people. Yeah. But bounce back to possibly beat Pacheco, yeah, I could certainly see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in terms of where these ladies go from here, for now, we know the answer is that the season's over. That's how PFL is structured, which is super cool.
Yeah.
In terms
I'm
of
curious, if we have to go through a whole nother season again, or if there are times like this one where the PFL will be like, all right, it's a big fight, let's just do number 4. Like, you know, I'm curious to see how they decide to handle this. And I already saw today they're trying to still set up Kayla and Cyborg, so who knows?
Oh,
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
were you gonna say, Omar?
No, I was surprised they were trying to set up Kayla and Cyborg. I figured Pacheco would be the good fight to go down again. I mean, I know it's repetitive, but it's still very interesting because Kayla Harrison kind of got her both times, and now all of a sudden Pacheco seems to have found a way, and it's almost like, could she do it again? And PFL, unfortunately, especially when it comes to those heavier divisions, don't really have a ton of talent to really dip into the pool for that makes some of these fights really worthwhile. That's kind of been one of the biggest knocks on Kayla Harrison's career so far, is that she's fighting girls that are essentially unknown, girls that may not have the resume to necessarily put all these accolades next to your name about, you know, all these quick finishes and et cetera, et cetera. But I think Larissa Pacheco has now proven that she's made a name for herself, that she's the real deal. So it's difficult to deny wanting to see two girls of that caliber go at it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Women of that caliber.
Sure. Ladies.
So I'm looking at it right now. Apparently let's see, who is this guy? Don Davis. I don't know who he is. He's something, I guess, in charge of PFL. But he has offered $1 million to each of Kayla and Cyborg, plus another $2 million to the winner of the fight, plus the winner chooses a Rolls Royce. So basically, you win this fight, you get $3 million in a Rolls Royce.
And a Rolls Royce.
What?
Biggest cash purse in history for female MMA. This was yesterday.
Wow.
And Cyborg responded and said she drives a Tesla and that she wants an 80-20 split. So it doesn't seem like we're close.
Okay. Like,
I mean, I feel that.
Then sell the Rolls Royce.
I'm over the gas cars myself. I'd be like, give me something electric now. Just get out of here with that Rolls Royce.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, right? Give it to me.
Jeez, man.
Wait, Cyborg wants an 80-20 split with Kayla?
Yeah, apparently that's what.
Oh, that fight's never gonna happen.
No, certainly not at that.
That fight's never gonna happen.
60-40 maybe happens.
Maybe she's just trying to anchor. Okay, Mark. The event also featured 5 other finals matchups within the PFL's various division tournaments, with the winner of each taking home $1 million. So give us a synopsis overview of how the rest of this night played out.
All right, so yeah, we'll work our way down the card here. Omar got to shine last week. This one's going to be the Mark show for a second here.
I wasn't.
So co-main, the fight I was most looking forward to, Brendan Loughnane wins the featherweight tournament with a 4th-round TKO of Bubba Jenkins. And what a damn fight this thing was. It lived up to the hype that I had built in my head for it. They were jawing at each other throughout, kept the intensity high. In round 1, Bubba came out and did his thing. He was looking good. He was landing more. He didn't get a takedown, but he had Brendan thinking and working to defend. But Loughnane just kept investing in that calf kick and investing in that calf kick. And before you know it, we're mid-round 2, and Bubba Jenkins is badly compromised. And, you know, he was an absolute G as he kept fighting, kept finding clean shots that he was landing, just enough to make you think, like, man, maybe he's not out of this. But the variety of strikes coming from Brendan Loughnane was just too great. I mean, especially as Jenkins started having a harder time moving defensively. Like, it was teeps up the middle, calf kicks, body shots, punches from all different angles, and all of it with a high pace and a high work rate coming from Loughnane. He threw and landed double the amount of strikes that Jenkins did. So that's a lot coming at you when your leg is already compromised. And the key to the whole thing was that Bubba Jenkins couldn't land a takedown either. So Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins, 2 top-shelf wrestlers, back-to-back fights, not a smidge of a takedown for either man on Brendan Loughnane. So that is a massive progression in his game and something that really elevates him to being a pretty high-level fighter at this point if you're not going to be able to bring him to the mat. So huge showing for him. Great night. And I just want to add real quick, I hate the bias of other organizations as opposed to the UFC. And even fighters have it, and I saw it after this fight. Charles Rosa is tweeting, like, how do you think this no-name PFL champ does against a UFC-level fighter? I'm clearly better than him, and he's making 10 times more than me, and blah, blah, blah. And Brendan Loughnane would beat the fucking brakes off Charles Rosa. Like, I hate these guys who just think because they're in the UFC, they're, like, better than everyone else in the world. Brendan Loughnane would smoke Charles Rosa. Anyway, that was a quick sidebar by me.
Real quick, I do also want to point out that Loughnane won his fight in the Contender Series. Mark mentioned this last week. He won his fight in the Contender Series, was shafted a spot in the UFC because he went for a takedown at the end of the fight. And Dana White got all in his butthurt feelings and made a whole fucking speech about this isn't what we do, and I'm here to see what you have today and show me everything you got and brain damage now and all this other shit. And so it was lovely to see Loughnane essentially give a real fuck you to the UFC by winning $1 million, not even a year after that. I think it's fantastic.
Connor was tweeting about him too. Connor was saying how good he looked and how he should be in the UFC, and Dana needs to sign him and blah blah blah. So, yeah, big performance for Brendan Loughnane.
Yeah, man. Charles Rosa especially needs to realize that the only reason he's not in the UFC was because Dana White was on a fucking roid rampage that day or something. He was on something that day. But the fact is,
Charles Rosa is about this close from being cut from the UFC. So
he's got one foot out the door as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, moving on down the card, we will go to the lightweight championship, which was Olivier Aubin-Mercier against Stevie Ray, and OAM gets the round 2 knockout. This was a hell of a statement from the man OAM. Round 1, he came out and he won it with rain striking, kind of just exactly how we said he would. And I'm thinking, like, all right, we were right. He's going to kind of handle Stevie Ray here. And then in round 2, Stevie Ray finds this big lift takedown, immediately takes the back. He's got OAM defending for a while. And for a second, even though OAM does eventually get back to his feet, it was like, wow, like, is Stevie Ray going to find a way to ugly this thing up and make it interesting? And we were doubting him again. And then, bang. As soon as the thought entered my mind, check right hook of fucking doom. Stevie Ray goes out bad, no follow-up shot necessary, and OAM gets his first PFL finish at the absolute perfect time. So huge statement by him, huge performance by him, and honestly, another guy that the UFC never should have let go, especially with the way they look to market themselves in Canada. It'd be nice to have an OAM still on the roster. I'm not sure how he ended up leaving. Maybe it was his choice. I don't remember, to be honest. But obviously in a good spot in the game right now.
Real quick, what were the odds of OAM winning by knockout? Because they had to be in the 1,000 plus.
I bet it was fairly high. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they don't really split up knockout and TKO. They're one bet. Sure. So, like, it could have been a ground and pound, so maybe it was a little more down. But it was good odds regardless, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so one more that I'll kind of give a walkthrough, and then I'll give you some quicker recaps. The one other that I want to touch on kind of significantly is at light heavyweight, which was where we saw Rob Wilkinson take out Omari Akhmedov via round 2 TKO by doctor stoppage. This was a crazy fight. Rob Wilkinson came out looking friggin' elite in round 1. The reach was a huge factor. But on top of that, he was stuffing takedowns with ease, landing the right hand over and over, walking Akhmedov down. He mixes in like a jump knee by the end of the round. It was just a show from him out of the gate. But you can't talk about this fight without noting that Omari Akhmedov is an absolute tank of a human. Like, it was incredible how much damage this man was taking, and he just kept coming and kept coming. And you started to get this feeling of like, holy shit, is this going to be one of those fights where Rob Wilkinson wins it every second, and then he gets so tired from beating the shit out of Akhmedov that it's going to swing? And kind of just at the end of round 2, when Wilkinson did start to look tired, thankfully for him, he had put enough of a beating on Akhmedov by that point, created a cut big enough on his head that the doctors were just like, okay, no mas. So massive win for Wilkinson. You got to give him his credit. The guy threw 150 strikes in 2 rounds, and he landed 100 of them. That is a hell of a clip at light heavyweight. So
yeah,
he just had one of the best PFL runs of anyone I can recall. 4 knockouts, I'm pretty positive. So I'm very intrigued to see what his next career step will be. And this is a guy who was a wrestler. Back when he fought Izzy in the UFC, he was known as a straight-up wrestler. There was no hands to speak of. Now he's friggin' cracking fools. So he's an interesting guy right now, and I'm sure he could make middleweight too if that ever needed to be the case. A lot of times at the heavier weight classes in PFL, it kind of seems like guys decide not to cut. Like Akhmedov obviously used to be a middleweight in the UFC as well. So I think he could still make 185. So he's an interesting fighter right now. I'm curious to see if he stays in the PFL or not. And it's interesting because so many of these guys that win, Wilkinson said it, OAM said it, Loughnane might have even said it too. I'm trying to think. I think all 3 of those guys might have said it. They talk about how it's the hardest thing they ever did. Like you could tell they mean it. They're like, this many fights, this short of time, you're going into fights injured, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's painful. And they were all making the point that it's the hardest thing they ever did. So it makes you wonder, like, yeah, you got $1 million at the end, but like, do you want to go through this again, or would you rather kind of try to hit up some other organizations and see what's out there for you? So I'm curious to see what guys do. But okay, let's get through the rest of this card quick. I'll give you some quicker rundowns on the rest. Heavyweight, Ante Delija, round 1 TKO of Matheus Scheffel. Scheffel actually came out and maybe surprised some people by being unafraid to stand an exchange with Delija. And for a second, it was like, man, is Delija going to adjust? Like, it doesn't seem like it's working. And then squashed that, dropped Scheffel with a beautiful combo, pounced, and got him out of there. So big statement for him. Another guy who had a great season, so capped it off well. The random fight that was thrown onto the main card, Aspen Ladd and Julia Budd. This was interesting because Ladd, in round 1, she caught a kick from Julia Budd. She won by split decision, I should say. I forgot to give you the result. But she caught a kick from Julia Budd, got a takedown off it, and looked like her old aggressive self. Like, it was like, wow, there's Aspen Ladd. Like, I recognize you. And she was doing really well on the ground. And then round 2 and 3, she couldn't get a takedown. And you realize that her catching that kick was the only reason it ever ended up there, because she couldn't do it on her own. And Bud stopped throwing kicks. And it kind of just became this grueling clinch battle that I honestly thought Ladd was losing. Like, she couldn't get a takedown. Bud, I thought, was having more success in the clinch, more success with the strikes. You know, it was close. I'd like to rewatch it again, but PFL is preventing me from doing that because apparently even if you buy a pay-per-view, you can't rewatch it in PFL, which is ridiculous. So I didn't get to rewatch it. I did think Bud won live, but Ladd gets the nod, so at least she gets off the snide. Good for her. And then a couple more quick. One last title fight was at welterweight, where Sadibou C got a unanimous decision over Delano Taylor. The reason I kind of saved this one is because it wasn't the most exciting fight you've ever seen. Sadibou C basically won $1 million literally by playing defense. Like, he just maintained range. He kept Taylor on the outside. He pretty much struck only defensively if Taylor tried to come in just to keep him off him. Circled out, used his footwork, and he just stopped Taylor from really accomplishing anything. So kind of wild to see a fighter win a huge fight that way, just fighting purely defensively, but it's a very Sadibou C thing to do. It's not the first time he's done it, and it seems to be working for him, so he gets himself $1 million. And then our boy, Marlon Moraes, who we had some hopes for, took a round 3 TKO loss to Sheyman Moraes, which was tough because Marlon came out looking like the better fighter all fight long. Like, he was better in the striking, better in the wrestling, faster, pressuring. He closed Sheyman's eye almost by the end of round 1. Round 2 was more of the same. Like, he was cruising. Like, it was kind of like, this is awesome. Marlon Moraes is still here. And then it happened again. He's still winning the exchanges in round 3, and then, boom, overhand right on the temple from Sheyman. Marlon tried to survive the barrage, but he just couldn't. So my guess is he won't be one and done in the PFL. I bet we're going to see him again, but to get himself all jacked up out of retirement to come back and fight again and tell himself, like, PFL is where it's at, he's going to reinvigorate himself, and then have that happen, that's a tough pill to swallow. So I don't know where Marlon Moraes' mental is going to be.
Do you think it's even worse that he was beating the shit out of Sheyman Moraes and still gets caught again?
Yeah.
Again. Like, all of this work he puts in for 3 rounds and 1 shot, and he just loses again. Like, that shit's got to be just infuriating. Absolutely
As
infuriating.
the shot came, commentary was like, yeah, man, Sheyman Moraes hasn't found a way to touch Marlon all fight long. Boom. Like, literally, he was handling every bit of the fight.
Dude, I was listening to our show last week with Francesco. We were in the car, and this was already after actually the PFL had gone down, and I was listening to how I was saying that Moraes right now is kind of like that kid who's doing everything right, running, doing everything right, and literally just trips and falls right at the very last second, right before the finish line, and just fucks up. And it's so sad that that's what happened.
Because every loss he has, you leave it still being like, fuck, he was so good though. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
He's talented,
yeah.
man.
It's weird. It's a weird one. I don't know. So we'll see what he
Poor
does.
dude,
Big win
man.
for Sheyman, obviously, gets his revenge. And then 2 last quick ones just because they were noteworthy. Natan Schulte taps out Jeremy Stevens in 2 rounds. I would say Schulte was winning every single second of this fight. He literally just went right for the takedown. All of round 1 was Stevens surviving sub-attempts. Round 2, we went right back to the ground. Schulte moves to mount, beautiful arm triangle, and that's it. So Jeremy Stevens not having a lot of fun as of late. And then the last one was Magomedkerimov with a UD over Gleison Tibau. Props to Gleison. The man did not get taken down one single time, which is pretty damn impressive. And we know this about Gleison. I shouldn't be surprised. The guy's impossible to take down, but Maga is still good enough that he was able to beat Gleison just simply with the striking. He was ahead all fight long, used the reach. So he gets a nice W. And that is it for what was a pretty deep PFL card.
Give him some.
I'm just here to remind everybody that Gleison Tibau took down Khabib.
Yes. Yes. Arguably the only guy to beat Khabib. A lot of people thought he beat Khabib.
Yep.
Yeah, Khabib couldn't take him down once, and he got taken down by Gleison. So
that's right.
Just here to remind everyone of that real quick.
Also, real quick, going back to Jeremy Stevens. Jeremy Stevens seems like a guy who, and I can't believe I'm saying this, he seems like the kind of guy who would enjoy getting out of MMA and going to like bare knuckle or something like that.
I swear to God, when I saw him tap, in my head, I was like, Jeremy Stevens is not going to do this anymore. He's going to go somewhere where he doesn't have to grapple. And I thought of bare knuckle.
Yeah.
I said from the start when he first left the UFC, I said bare knuckle. He has to go to bare knuckle. It's Jeremy Stevens. Why would you not go to bare knuckle?
Why would
PFL makes some sense though, because if Jeremy Stevens believes in himself and he really thinks he has the opportunity to win $1 million, I see it. But maybe now that reality agreed, but not in everything. And so now that he's been choked out by reality, perhaps BKFC is more of a closer thing in the horizon for him.
I'm sure.
I know. I would love it.
I don't know. I don't know if bare knuckle BKFC, to be exact. I don't know if they disclose their payouts like PFL does, but I'm sure they'll pay him. I'm sure they'll pay him. He's a big name.
I know Mike Perry. Mike Perry's making a fucking bag and a half every time he steps onto this cage. So that boy is
Jeremy
whatever
Stevens
it is.
might break a dude's skull in bare knuckle.
Jeremy Stevens is like he is the smaller and Midwest version of Mike Perry. Right? If Mike Perry grew up in the Midwest and was 20 pounds lighter, that's Jeremy Stevens.
Isn't Mike Perry from the Midwest originally?
No, he's from Florida. He's a Florida guy.
Mike Perry's from Miami, bro.
I know he lives in Miami, but I thought he was born somewhere in the Midwest. I'm wrong on that?
Maybe.
He was born. That's why he likes to say a lot of the things he says, because he grew up around a lot of black people.
It's true.
So he takes a lot of liberties, and no one can really check him because he can beat the shit out of everybody.
Born in Michigan. Suck my blank. People.
Is that the Midwest?
He's from the fucking Midwest.
What city?
Flint.
He's from Flint. Wow.
Oh my God. Well, that explains it still.
I bet you he moved to Florida a while ago, though.
For much of his life, he moved around to different schools between Michigan and Florida.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can say he's from both, I guess. So we were both right. All right, we were both right.
Told you he's a Midwest man.
Mike Perry.
But,
I'm happy for him in a way. I'm happy for him in a way. Now that he's found bare knuckle. Yeah. What a trajectory that guy's had.
Yes, for sure.
Remember when he was dating his trainer or married to his trainer?
Oh, that was a rough sequence.
It was. And then she tried to come out. She tried to come out with like abuse.
He had a kid with her.
Oh, he did?
Isn't that who his kid is?
No. He only had a kid with this new girl, this Latori girl. That's his first kid.
The tiny girl.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm confusing myself. Yeah.
Who seems very
No, the other one.
Right.
Yeah, the other one was like the older white woman.
Yes.
He found himself a Latina.
He did. And she looks very young. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, everyone thinks it.
Okay, enough of this. Jeremy Stevens, go make money boxing or something like that.
Please. No, don't do all that. BKFC specifically. You don't need to send him into the death pins of actual boxing. BKFC. Go wreck somebody there.
Okay, let's move on here. Mark, we're going to stick with you, and why don't we reach back in time a little bit to the last UFC card and give us your rankings update for that.
All right, so this is a very quick one. I promised you guys last week that I would come with the Prio rankings once I caught up on that UFC card that I had missed. So here are the retroactive movements. It's only two. One riser, one faller. It comes from the main event. Rest of the card, there wasn't anything too significant that happened. So the riser is Kennedy Zachukwu getting himself a big win.
Woo.
He moves from number 29 in my light heavyweight rankings, which is, kind of out of the mix, up to number 21, which is kind of right on the edge of a significant fight. So big win for him. And then Iwan Kutelaba is the faller. Goes from number 18 down to number 22. So a little bit of a tumble for him. He's not on a great run right now after being a ranked fighter at one point in time. And that is it, and we are caught up.
Kutelaba, bare knuckle, let's go. Also,
I don't hate it.
Kennedy, super thankful guy. Did you hear him in his post-fight after he won?
Yeah.
Super humble guy.
What did he say again? I watched it right after we did our show last week.
They might have been, correct me if I'm wrong, people down in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who caught that, my memory's failing a little bit. I think they might have been talking about fighter pay a little bit. And he was like, no. I'm super thankful. He's
yes, right.
I love this.
I did hear that. Yes.
So that's cool.
And that is what he said. You're right.
I became an instant fan of his. I'm like, oh, this guy's great. Okay. Let's dive right in now to the headlines and news within the world of MMA with our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere. Omar, what do you got for us this week?
So this week is actually pretty light all across the board. So we'll be able to get to next week's card or this weekend's card pretty quickly. First on the list, Conor McGregor back again, hit with another lawsuit by Artem Lobov. Now Artem has added, he has added defamation on top of the whole Proper 12 I want money lawsuit. And it's against Conor McGregor and his father as well.
What?
Conor McGregor went on the internet, talked some shit, and then challenged Artem to a fight. I'm sure Artem doesn't want that smoke. Not for real.
Artem's a goat, though.
Especially now, dude. Artem Lobov has probably been like King Dad for the last couple of years, and McGregor is like 300 pounds heavier than what he was before. I don't think it's a great idea. But it's sad. No. It's sad to see that friendship crumble because
man,
Artem Lobov kind of Artem Lobov became kind of like a people's favorite, like, the GOAT thing and all that stuff. It was kind of endearing after a certain point. He took it on the chin and kind of loved it. And I was a fan of his. He's not the best fighter in the world, but he was always fun, if nothing else. And him and McGregor made a good little team together. And it's sad to see all of this shit devolve into what it is. So hopefully they get to figure it out.
Yeah, it was him and Conor, and Gunny Nelson was also kind of in that stable at SBG. It was at SBG.
Yeah.
But Nelson was just such a stoic guy. He just never got wrapped up in any of the shenanigans.
Yeah. I don't even know how often
in the crew. Right, he would train there at times, but he wasn't like a full timer over there.
I also don't know how often Gunny actually says words out loud because
I don't think too much.
Yeah.
So he said that Conor and Conor's dad defamed him?
I think it's just they've just been talking because they've been talking shit. I think it's just they've been talking shit. I don't know if he actually has a case. Like, I don't know if he's going to win these lawsuits. But look at the way Conor McGregor talks shit on Twitter. Like, he's asking to get, for these things to kind of happen. But McGregor's got lawyers too. I don't think he's worried about nothing.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there's anything too worried about. So it is what it is. Like I said, it's just sad that friends they're being friends kind of got to this point.
I know. Yeah. My brother is an attorney, and I had conversation with him about this. I've asked him, and he has told me defamation and libel are very hard to win in court. Just generally speaking, as like a category of lawsuit, very difficult to win.
Yeah. Meaning, I would imagine very much more difficult when you are going up against lawyers that are paid for by Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Because it's not a lawyer anymore. It's a company.
Probably a team,
Yeah. It's like 8 dudes, and then they all got like 12 underlings below them. So if there's any paperwork or anything that needs to get done, each one of them can do it. It's a real machine. A lot of those law firms have.
How much do you think Conor McGregor has paid in legal retainers over the course of the past 10 years?
More than
I've ever made.
Oh man!
You think it'd be cheaper though, right? Because he has them on retainer, so it's not really like he's paying them by the hour. He's kind of like leasing them for the year almost.
I thought that a retainer kind of is an hourly rate. They pull from the retainer their like an hourly rate more or less. And lawyers get like $500 an hour.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, it depends on who you are, but yeah. Sometimes good ones don't even get paid by the hour, and they get paid by commission. Like after they win, they'll take a percentage of whatever the win is and not necessarily an hourly rate.
That would be nice.
Those dudes make fucking... Those are the dudes with like the Mercedes-Benz that has a Mercedes-Benz inside of it. Those guys are the rich assholes.
All right, let's circle this thing back.
Yeah, wow, this went off the hinges here.
Yeah,
all right. Next one, Jake Paul made an offer to... Any guesses?
Paddy Pimblett.
So random. Just
why
so
Patty?
Absolute. I don't know, dude. Just so absolutely random. But Jake Paul offered Paddy Pimblett $1 million if he beats him in a sparring match of, what was it, 5 3-minute rounds.
In a sparring?
He did it because Paddy said his fights were fixed. That's what it stemmed from.
Oh.
Okay. Well, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
But it's also Paddy's down to spar, but Paddy also has a fight in like a few weeks. So Paddy's like, so not right now. After my fight, you're more than welcome to come to the UFC PI, and I'll beat your ass there. So that's interesting.
It's just talk.
I also don't think that's going to happen. But for $1 million, shit, if I was Paddy, I'd at least give it a shot too. So why not?
I mean, to your point of it being a random call out, it's not random at all. I mean, he's yet another wrestler who weighs probably 30 pounds less than Jake Paul. So it's a very strategic call out. And it is
wrestler is also kind of a rough word. It's a jiu-jitsu guy.
He's a grappler. He's primarily a grappler.
Yes.
It's look,
Spotty striker, I guess.
I'm honestly starting to kind of come around to the whole Jake Paul phenomenon. At first, I was a full 100% hater of this man, and now I'm kind of like, it's a train. The train's going down the tracks, and it's just like, let's just watch and see what happens.
That's exactly how I feel.
I mean, the thing with my thing now at this point with Jake Paul is you can't not call him a fighter. You can't.
At this point, yeah.
You can't.
He just fucking beat Anderson Silva.
Right. Even if he didn't, he fought Anderson Silva. And it like you can't discredit the fact that he gets in the ring, he does the work, he puts in the work, and there's real results as a part of it. I think where the smoke and mirrors comes from is exactly how good he is compared to elite boxers. He's good for a regular human being who has learned boxing in a short amount of time. Anderson Silva is not really a boxer. He's boxed before, and I thought he would have done much better, but he really fucking didn't. But Jake Paul,
I don't think anyone thinks that he would compete with real boxers. You do?
And this is this isn't
who? Not
Anderson
me.
Silva from not Anderson Silva from like 2008.
Right. No, you're right. Well, there is one person, segue, who Jake Paul might be able to fight, and that would be the boy Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has officially ended his contract with the UFC. He has been removed from the roster and is officially now a free agent. So he is able to literally do whatever he wants and sign with whoever he wants. Pretty sure this is the first time since like 2000 and what? 8, 6, 7, something like that, since Nate Diaz hasn't been part of the UFC. So it's a big moment. Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. I don't really care who you are. That fight would sell, I think, way better than any of the other Jake Paul fights that have ever been announced. So I think that would be the way to go if it were me. So we'll see what happens.
Would they have a weight? Would they have a weight in common, or like would Nate just not cut and just kind of show up like around 190?
I would imagine that 185 would be a good way to go.
85? Yeah, I guess so.
What's the lowest weight that? Like, what did Jake fight Woodley at 180, or was it more than that?
I thought it was 90.
I think it was 185.
Was it 85?
Or it might have even been 190.
What did he fight Anderson at? Was it 85? We can find this out. Let's find this out.
No, I think it was 190 something.
Yeah, I think so too.
186.
185. Yeah, so 180. Yeah,
that's probably where they would go then. 185.
I'm looking at the.
Jake is the one who's going to have to cut, I think, a majority of that weight.
Oh yes, of course. Nate Diaz is not going to cut a pound. He's just going to show up.
Yeah.
Well, as long as he doesn't stay sitting on a couch somewhere, I think he'll be all right. As far as the cutting is concerned.
85 though, Nate Diaz. Does he even walk around to 85? That's what I'm saying.
I think he walks around in the 90s. He walks around in the 90s. Oh, does he?
That heavy? Wow.
I think so. All right. Got a couple of fight announcements, and then we will get into this weekend's business. Philippe Lins is out against his fight with Ovince St. Preux. OSP will now be fighting Antonio Tricoli at UFC 282 on December 10th. Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Claudio Ribeiro has been added to UFC's Vegas card on January 14th. Nikita Krylov, or Krylov,
Krylov, I think.
Krylov. He's Ukrainian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Y is a U?
It's kind of a
Sometimes they say Krylov, though, when they're talking about him, too. They always say different.
Nikita Krylov. We'll take it. Versus Ryan Spann has been as the headliner for UFC's February 25th event. That's a great fight, and I believe they called Mark to find that choice. So, well done. Jessica Penne versus Tabitha Ricci has been added to UFC's March 4th event, so I'm glad they got that fight rebooked, I believe. And that is all we actually have for you this week.
Mark has secretly been working as the UFC matchmaker behind the scenes.
One day, baby.
Facts.
One day.
Yes.
Hopefully they'll give him the paycheck then that the other dude's getting.
Yeah, right. Let's go. Okay, let's keep this train rolling. Speaking of trains, it's preview time.
If Anthony needs a matchmaker, I'm sure Mark would be able to oblige.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Sign me
That'd
up.
be cool. You'd be matching up a lot of young guys, though.
Yeah,
a lot of
because I don't know.
A lot of young pros. Ton of talent, though. It's so fun. I imagine Nate Diaz. Remember, he also announced his own promotion, like
Right.
Real Fighters Inc. or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So I imagine he will be
Real Fight.
probably developing that at some point.
Yeah.
Also, Nate, hit me up. Let me be your guy. Although might not be, I might not be on brand for the Nate Diaz promotion. You know what I mean?
Too professional.
Yeah.
Just get yourself a temporary face tattoo. You're straight. It'd be good.
No, it's all good. I'll still send it.
Get one. Get the one like Cody Garbrandt, where your tattoo is now your fucking side, your sideburn.
Right?
I don't know if the tattoo's the end. They don't even have tattoos.
Yeah, the Diaz's don't have any tattoos.
No.
Their friends do.
I think you got to go a different route than that.
Yeah, right. All right, let's talk about what is coming up this weekend in the MMA world. One on Prime Video 5, DeRitter versus Malikin. As well as, what is the other event? 164?
Yeah, one championship, 164 is the official name.
Let's talk one on Prime Video 5 first. We're going to talk about the main event between DeRitter and Malikin, and also let's also highlight one other fight in the middleweight division for one between Roberto Soldic and Murad Ramazanov, or Ramazanov, never know.
I believe.
Yeah, man. So you have Roberto Robocop Soldic, the 27-year-old out of Croatia. He has been on a tear, absolute tear. All of his career has been at KSW over, I believe, in Russia. He will be riding a 7-fight win streak coming into this weekend's fight. He is 20-3 as a professional with 17 knockouts, 1 submission to add to that. Never been subbed himself, only knocked out once, and 2 decision losses. Murad Ramazanov, the 27-year-old as well, he is out of Russia, undefeated, 11-0, 4 knockouts, 3 subs, well-rounded skill set, like it. Mark, what are your thoughts on this matchup coming into this weekend?
So KSW is a Polish organization.
Oh, Polish, excuse me.
Just want to throw that out quick. And it's probably one of the highest level non-UFC, Bellator, 1, PFL organizations that exists
they seem
in
huge.
MMA. And yeah, Soldic is a guy who a lot of people thought was headed to the UFC. That was the rumor for a bit there, and he chose 1. So I haven't heard his explanation. I actually clicked on an interview of his last week that was about it, and then I had to stop watching it because I had to do work, so I never actually watched it. So I'm curious why he chose 1. But here it is. This is his debut. He is 2-1 favorite, just about. He's minus 210. Ramazanov is plus 170. So yeah, Roberto Soldic is a pretty big deal. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. He may be currently the best, most established fighter who is not in one of the big 4 organizations that I just mentioned until this moment. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else more so than him, but no one is coming to mind. So yeah, Roberto Soldic is a stud. He's an animal. He was a 2-weight champ in KSW. The man's still only 27, as Mike said. He has 3 losses in his whole career. 1 is an early one, so we'll dismiss that. Another one was kind of early as well, but it's a split decision to Yaroslav Amosov, the Bellator champion. So we know how good he is. And the other is in his 1-1 series with Dricus du Plessis, where they both finished each other once. So those are the entirety of his losses. He has recently knocked out Magomedkerimov in his last KSW fight, which is noteworthy considering the regard that people hold Khalidov in. That's another guy who people thought was going to come to the UFC a few years back. So he's a pretty big deal. He is fighting an undefeated fighter, a wrestler, so potentially someone who could nullify him. Soldic is certainly a guy who is more known for the striking. So there is a world here where maybe a couple takedowns happen and Soldic gets held down and the buzz of the debut gets kind of sucked out. Even the bookies think that. You can see it's only Ramazanov is plus 170, so this is no walk in the park at all. But I can't not take Soldic. I'm too excited to see him making this move. He's a pressure fighter. He's a burst fighter when he sees an opening. But at the same time, he's not a guy who rushes it or who gets sloppy like other knockout artists may tend to do. He's a very patient guy. He sets traps. He's used to defending takedowns because most guys don't want to strike with him. So I expect he'll be okay here. He's a veteran. He's been in a lot of fights. This is Ramazanov's first maybe true big fight, and I'm gonna trust Soldic to get it done in this one. He knocks out nearly everyone he stands across from. He's got something like a 90% finish rate or something like that. So I'm going to roll with him here. I will say he eventually gets Ramazanov. I will go with round 3 TKO for Roberto Soldic.
Okay. Omar, anything you want to add on this matchup before we go to the De Ridder main event?
No, I'm pretty high on Soldic, to be honest. So I'm always down to see what he's going to bring to the table. The Murad character here is actually very
stick with the first name. Yeah.
He's his wrestling is actually pretty legit, and he's obviously part of Team Dagestan. So I'm very interested to see how Soldic gets around it. If he's extremely dominant, if it's a close fight, I'm very high on him. So I'm interested to see how it goes.
I'm honestly surprised by the one matchmaking. Like, you would think they would be like, all right, for the debut, let's get him in there with someone who's going to stand with him, not someone who might freaking take him down and hold him there, you know? So I'm surprised they took that risk, but we'll see if Soldic can make it not matter.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the main event, one light heavyweight world championship bout between the current champion, Reiner de Ridder, who's also the one middleweight champion, and the current interim one heavyweight champion, Anatoly Malikin. Let's see, De Ridder, the Dutch Knight, great nickname. 32 years old, out of the Netherlands, of course. 16-0, undefeated. This man, for the weight class, has great size, 6'4" tall. Of his 16 wins, 3 knockouts, 11 submissions. That's quite a finish rate. Anatoly Malikin, though, quite the formidable opponent. The 34-year-old out of Russia, also undefeated, 10-0. His nickname, Sladicki. I don't know. It's Russian. I have no idea what it means, but I had to say it. I had to try. Of his 10 victories, all finishes, 7 knockouts, 3 submissions. This is going to be some real fireworks. Mark, why don't you take it away? Give us your assessment and your take.
Yeah, this is no easy matchup for the boy Reiner de Ridder, who has been looking fantastic in one, but he's going to have a tough one on his hands here. Always love a matchup where someone's O has got to go. It's always fun to see two undefeated guys match up against each other. The odds are tight. It's actually the challenger who is the favorite. Malikin is minus 140. De Ridder is plus 110. When I first saw this announced, I actually thought that it was de Ridder going for the heavyweight title. Obviously, it's the interim because Arjun Bowler is still the champ who's been out for, I guess he's hurt. I feel like it's been forever. But de Ridder has talked a lot about how he wants to try to be a three-way champ over there. So when I saw this, I was like, here we go. And it's actually the other way. Malikin is cutting down to light heavyweight to try to take de Ridder's light heavyweight belt, which I guess is not surprising because Malikin is not the biggest heavyweight in the world either, so I don't think this cut should be too terrible for him. He's only 6 feet tall, so he's actually 4 inches shorter than de Ridder is. But either way, this is going to be a good fight. So in one, first off, with the rehydration stuff, light heavyweight is 225. So it's not like Malikin is cutting to 205. It's 225. Granted, he's not supposed to be cutting, but you never know what one does with all this rehydration stuff. So they're fighting at 225. The fight is maybe a little more complicated than this, but in a way, it's kind of striker versus grappler. Like de Ridder, we know what he is. He will certainly be looking to drag this one down and wrap himself around Malikin in some form or fashion. The guy grabs onto you, finds any limb that you leave out there, doesn't let go. Suddenly you're wrapped up, and he's hunting for submission. So we know his game. Malikin is a guy who kind of looks to crash in, land big power on the feet. He's certainly going to be faster, more powerful. He's a more skilled striker than de Ridder is for sure. That is de Ridder's obvious weakness is the striking. And Malikin historically has had very strong takedown defense as well. Granted, de Ridder is not necessarily like your typical shoot wrestler. He's more like trips in the clinch and off-balance things and crafty things like that. So we'll see if that makes any difference in terms of the takedown defense that Malikin can bring. But it's a tight fight. I was flipping back and forth on it just because the athleticism and the power that Malikin is going to bring concerns me. But as much as I think we may see de Ridder in danger, we may see him struggling at times to get Malikin down, even struggle to keep him down if he gets him there, and maybe even see de Ridder hurt. I just wonder if Malikin can get him out of there, because we've seen him survive some tough spots before. And in 25 minutes, I feel like at some point de Ridder can wrap him up, and next thing you know, we could be seeing a tap. So it's a tough one, but de Ridder is such a wizard that I'm having a hard time not rolling with him until I see someone actually beat him. So I will go Reiner de Ridder, round 3 submission.
Omar, any other words you want to say about de Ridder?
Sladiki apparently means sweetie.
Funny.
It's a weird flex, but there it is.
All right, let's move on to One Championship 164, December 3rd, at the SM Mall of Asia Arena in the Philippines. We are only going to be talking about the main event. Any other fights or fighters you guys want to shout out? I see that there's a Brandon Vera sighting on this card. He hasn't fought in over a year and a half.
Yeah, yes, I saw that too. He's a guy who's always kind of hovered around the upper part of that one heavyweight division. He's always been a fun guy to watch. I like Brandon Vera.
He's been around forever. I just looked. He's 45 years old. This guy's
Is
kind
he
of
that old now? Holy shit! I didn't think he was that old yet.
Brandon Vera's an OG.
Wow.
Who's the guy that broke his cheekbone? Was it John Jones?
It was John Jones.
No. It was Jones, right?
Yeah. He elbowed him in the face, broke his whole orbital.
Yeah, on the ground.
Yep. Literally in the middle of a fight, made Brandon Vera just turn over and be like, "No, I'm done. He hurt me.
Over.
It's done."
Yep.
That's back when Bones was a savage, man.
That was the legendary run of John Bones Jones.
Yeah, man. Okay, digressing here. My bad. let's talk about this main event. Strawweight world title defense, Joshua Pacheco versus Jared Brooks. Did I say his name right?
I think it's an S, like Pacheco.
Pacheco?
I think.
Joshua the Passion Pacheco, the 26-year-old out of the Philippines, 19-3 as a professional with 8 knockouts and 8 submissions. That's an 84% finish rate. Never been knocked out. Has been subbed twice. We'll be riding a 4-fight win streak going into this weekend. Taking on Jared Brooks, the former UFC vet. 3 fights in UFC. He went 2-1 and he got cut. But has an outstanding overall professional record, 19-2 with 1 no contest. 29-year-old out of Indiana. 2 knockouts on his record, 8 subs. Also riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this title fight. Mark, what do you got to say about this matchup between Pacheco and Jared Brooks? And give us your pick.
All right, so this is an interesting one because it is for the strawweight title, which is not a title that you see very often in mainstream American men's MMA, at least. So they are fighting at 125, but again, it's rehydration, so this is the equivalent of a 115 men's division. So they are smaller than UFC flyweights that we are used to. Granted, Jared Brooks did fight as a UFC flyweight, as you just mentioned. Real quick, he is a big favorite. He's minus 400 as the challenger. The champ, Pacheco, is plus 300. So, yeah, Jared Brooks, we saw him in the UFC. He was 2-2 in the organization. He beat Eric Shelton, and he beat Roberto Sanchez. He lost a split decision to Davison Figueiredo, and he lost to Jose Torres by a crazy slam knockout. And Jose Torres is a very good fighter. He might be one of the best flyweights not in the UFC right now. I never understood why they let him walk. So those are his only 2 losses in his career. Aside from that, the man his overall record is 19-2-1. So he is the real deal. He's been running through one since he signed there. He's 3-0 with 2 finishes so far, both submissions. And speaking of good records, Josh Pacheco on the other side is nearly identical. He's 19-3. So it's a hell of a matchup. Two guys who are used to doing a lot of winning. And Pacheco has done it mostly behind his striking. He's got some opportunistic jiu-jitsu that he goes to as well. But he's a striker, first and foremost, which happens to be where Jared Brooks is weakest. So there is certainly an avenue for Josh Pacheco to catch Jared Brooks here and defend his belt. Unfortunately for him, I don't think that he has ever seen wrestling the caliber of a Jared Brooks. And I think Brooks can get it there, and I think Pacheco is going to be in trouble when he's on the mat with Jared Brooks. Brooks also has never been finished, well, aside from the crazy slam that I just mentioned, but never finished by strikes. So it's hard for me to think Pacheco finishes him here. I just think Brooks is going to be the bigger man, the stronger man, maybe even the faster man, depends. And I just think he can get in on the hips of Pacheco, even if he's got to absorb a couple to get in there. And I think he takes this one over with his wrestling. So Pacheco's been subbed before. I will say it happens again. And I will say Jared Brooks becomes the new champ, Monkey God, by round 3, rear naked choke.
The Monkey God. Fun one. Omar, anything you want to add?
The Monkey God versus the Passion.
It's like a movie.
It's the Monkey God for the win. That's just a better name.
All right, let's get into the UFC so I can tag Omar in here and take a breath.
That's right. Let's move on. UFC Fight Night this weekend, this Saturday night. Thompson versus Holland. So at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, we have a UFC Fight Night card. That is an excellent Fight Night card. This is not a weak card, folks, for a Fight Night. You can catch this entire card that really feels like a pay-per-view on ESPN Plus, on the app, from start to finish. Let's get into this. Starting with the prelims opener in the women's strawweight division, a bout between Yasmin Yoragui versus Estela Nunes. So Yasmin, the 23-year-old out of Mexico, undefeated prospect, 9-0, 5'3" tall, for 9 wins, 6 knockouts, 3 decisions. Estela Nunes out of Brazil, 30 years old, 6-3 with 1 no contest, 2 knockouts, 4 decisions. She's coming off back-to-back losses, though, most recently against Sam Hughes. Omar, give us your take and your assessment, and give us your pick. I know that you're pretty high on Yadagwe.
I'm stupid high on this girl. The fight that she had, her first debuting fight, I'll never forget it at this point because I remember all of us kind of collectively being like, what the hell are these two women doing, debuting on a main card of, I'm pretty sure it was a pay-per-view. And it was very, very confusing. And then they actually fought. And then we were like, okay, I understand. I'm okay with it. And here she is back at it again. Not a pay-per-view spot, starting off the night. But Yasmin Jauregui is a problem. Estela Nunes, I don't think is on that level. I think they're feeding Estela Nunes to Jauregui at this point. I think Jauregui so far is probably going to have the toughest fight of her little run at the beginning of it. I think Lucindo, Isamin Lucindo, I think is going to be the most difficult fight that she's going to have for a little bit, and I think they're going to feed her people to really make a good run and some highlights. So I expect Jauregui to destroy Nunes, KO, round 1.
Let's go. Okay, Mark, bring you back in here. Give us your quick assessment and pick of Jauregui versus Nunes.
All right, so Jauregui is the favorite, minus 335. Nunes is plus 255. I actually like Estela Nunes. She is a scrapper. I feel like I can see the talent in there, despite the fact that she's 0-2 so far in the UFC. But unfortunate matchmaking for her here because it's very hard not to go with Jauregui after what we saw in her debut. Gotta side with her here. She feels like the much more dynamic striker, much more in control striker. Nunes, you never know, she could try to kind of dirty it up and crash inside, and who knows how Jauregui responds. We did see her against someone who's kind of willing to go strike for strike with her in more of a technique based fight. So you never know. We haven't seen that much of Jauregui yet, but gotta roll with her. So I will say, what will I say? I will say UD.
Okay. We are unanimous here, boys. I will also be taking Jauregui. I think she's a real talent. As much as I agree with Mark that Nunes is a talented fighter out of Brazil, I just have to roll with Jauregui here. 9-0. I think she's going to get another TKO victory. I'm going to go round number 2. Moving on, we're going to skip a couple fights and go up to women's flyweight bout between Tracy Cortez and Amanda Ribas. So, Tracy Cortez, one of the more popular fighters on the entire roster. She is with Brian T. City Ortega. Are they married?
No, I don't think so.
Engaged?
No.
Okay.
Maybe engaged. I'm not sure.
Tracy Cortez is more than just a pretty face, gentlemen. Tracy Cortez, 10-1, and her only loss was her first pro fight. So she is on a 10-fight win streak going into this weekend. Most recently getting a UD over Melissa Gatto back in May of this year. She's the 28-year-old out of Phoenix, Arizona, and of her 10 wins, 8 of them have come by way of decision. Amanda Ribas, another popular women's fighter, 29-year-old out of Brazil, 11-3 as a pro, 3 knockouts, 4 subs, 4 decisions. Coming off a loss at the hands of Caitlin Blonde fighter Chukagian. Omar, let me start with you again this time. Give us your assessment of Cortez Ribas.
I like me some Tracy Cortez. I think she's fun. I like following her on the social medias and watching her and stuff like that. She's a funny personality. In the cage, she's a scrapper. She's definitely not the most powerful. She's not somebody who I think you need to worry about a one-punch knockout or a one-kick knockout for that matter. But the girl puts in work. And when she's on the ground, she's always very active on the ground. She doesn't necessarily allow people to just stay on top of her. She's generally trying to do something even if she's on the ground in a bad position. So she's definitely a tough out, but Amanda Ribas is a tall order for Tracy Cortez. And this could be one of those performances where Tracy Cortez has really stepped up to a different level. And we get to see that. or this might be the one where we get to see the ceiling of Tracy Cortez, because Amanda Ribas, I think, just based on resume and performances that we've seen, is a real step up in the competition. As much as I'd like Tracy Cortez and I'm rooting for her and I want her to win, I will be in that stadium cheering for Tracy Cortez. But I do think Amanda Ribas will probably walk away with that by unanimous decision.
Mark, give it to us.
So we got a dead even fight here. Pick 'em fight. They're both minus 110. I am always on team Amanda Ribas. I have always believed in her talent from jump. I have seen nothing to dissuade me from that thought. Tracy Cortez is obviously good as well. But I just think Ribas is so good that when she is not fighting someone who is in the elite, she is going to win that fight. So, I mean, she almost pulled off a W against Chookagian in her initial fight up at 125. So, as much as Cortez has been successful, I'm going to trust Ribas to turn her back at this point in their careers. Cortez is a gritty, tough fighter who's definitely willing to grind out a W. But Ribas is a tough girl to grind. Like, the grappling is dangerous. She's slippery. She's hard to hold down. She has offensive grappling that she can go to in her own right. She has great throws that she'll hit at times kind of out of nowhere. So if Cortez is not careful in her attempts to grapple, she may end up getting thrown and end up on her back. We'll see how she looks there. And I think Ribas has the advantage on the feet. So I could see a frustrated Tracy Cortez by the end of this one who's down on the cards. I'm going to say Amanda Ribas, UD.
Man, I'm surprised, number one, that the odds are that close. But conversely, and interestingly, I'm also surprised that you both took Ribas. I expected somebody to take Tracy Cortez, and it ain't going to be me. And so we are unanimous on this one once again. I think you both articulated it very well. I think Tracy Cortez, her record shows that she is very talented up to this point, but I do think that Amanda Ribas is on another level, which is why I'm surprised that it's a dead odd pick 'em. I think Ribas is going to be stronger in there. I think she has better jiu-jitsu, better ground skills, and I think she's going to be stronger on the feet too. And Tracy Cortez, who has a lot of decisions on her record, I think she's going to be handed her first decision loss, and I think Amanda Ribas is going to win 2 rounds to 1, maybe 3-0.
Like it.
Okay, moving up now to the men's featherweight division fight between Darren the Damage Elkins. This guy always just makes me smile every time I say his name. Darren the Damage Elkins.
You do love him.
Yeah, right? Taking on Jonathan Pierce. So, the Damage, 38-year-old out of Hobart, Indiana. He is 27-10. Not a bad record for Darren Elkins. 9 knockouts, 5 subs, and 13 decisions. And real quick, I did not populate Jonathan Pierce. 3, 2, 1. Jonathan Pierce, JSP. I wonder what S stands for. Probably his middle name. Out of Johnson City, Tennessee, 30 years old, 13-4 as a pro with 9 knockouts and 2 submissions, only 2 decision wins on his record. My man is a finisher, riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Mark, let me start with you this time. Give us your assessment and your pick of Elkins Pierce.
So Pierce, a pretty big favor here, minus 500. Darren Elkins is plus 350. So what I would say is that Elkins reminded us all in his last fight that he cannot be outgrinded. He can certainly be beat at this point, just not outgrinded. We thought Tristan Connolly could do it, at least a couple of us did, if I recall, and as soon as they got into the grindy portion of that fight, it was all Darren Elkins. And Pierce is a guy who sometimes will go that route, so I think he's just got to make sure he goes more so the skill route here and fights smart. And if he does that, I think he can take this fight. He can stop Elkins from being able to steal moments and kind of steal momentum and change the fight. Pierce is a much better striker. He should lean on that. He can grapple if needed, but I don't think he should even lean on that too heavy. I think he'll be fine matching the pace that Elkins wants to push. He freaking works a high pace himself. So I think he needs to just lean on the striking here. I think he'll add up damage, maybe even get Elkins out of there late in this fight. I'll actually say that. I will say JSP round 3 TKO with some kind of added up damage where eventually Elkins wilts.
Ooh, I like it. Omar, go.
Even the times where Darren Elkins has lost via finish, I'm always hesitant to pick Darren Elkins losing via finish. So I'm not going to do that. But I do think Jonathan Pierce is the better fighter. So I'm going to go with Jonathan Pierce by unanimous decision.
You know what, though? Darren Elkins is a fun guy to pick in the underdog slot, man.
He is.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it.
Nice.
Fuck it. Pierce has been finished before. I'm going to say Darren Elkins wins what turns into a war in the middle of the third round. I'm going to say he'll win by submission. He'll win by like a rear naked choke in the third round.
Wow. That would be big.
It would be. It's the name, man. It's the name. Okay, moving up into the lightweight division, bout between Michael Johnson and Mark Jacasey. So we have, oh man, once again I fucked up. I'm missing Michael Johnson.
Get it together over there.
Oh, Madonna mia.
Fans, if you need me to host this show, please say so in the comments.
Michael Johnson, 36-year-old out of Springfield, Missouri, 20-18 as a pro, 9 knockouts on his record, coming off of a loss against at the hands of Jamie Mullarkey. Mark Jacasey, the 29-year-old out of England, Doncaster, England to be exact, 16-5 as a pro, 6 knockouts, 1 sub. He has back-to-back wins coming into this Saturday night. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. Give us your take of the Menace versus Bone Crusher.
This is a very interesting fight. I think, though, maybe 4 years ago, this would have been a fight where we talked about how they're both going to stand up and they're both going to throw down and it's going to be violent. 2022 Mark Jacasey ain't looking to strike with you, man. 2022 Mark Jacasey looking to take your ass down and grind your ass out. So this may not go the way initially a fight between Michael Johnson and Mark Jacasey you would think it would go. So I'm hoping Michael Johnson is still a good enough wrestler to be able to keep Mark Jacasey at bay. I think the wrestling is still relatively new for Mark Jacasey, though his last fight he proved to make it effective in his game. Not as entertaining, but effective. But Johnson has a lot of experience. He's also comes from a wrestling background. I'm hoping he has enough to do to stop these attempts and then still kind of work his striking in there to take a win. I'm going to go with Michael Johnson by decision.
Okay, Mark.
So Michael Johnson, I would like to point out, got robbed in his last fight against Jamie Mullarkey.
Agreed.
That being said, he is the dog here. He's plus 250. Mark Jacasey is minus 325, so pretty wide.
That's a lot wider than I thought it was going to be.
It's wide because Omar nailed it, unfortunately. Like, this fight, you see it on paper, and you're like, fuck, like, hope they strike. They would have some awesome exchanges. And you think about it, and you're like, no, Mark Jacasey is going to come in and ruin this, and he's going to do his new fucking grapple thing that he does, and he's going to take all the fun out of this matchup. It just feels like that's where we're headed because, and you know how fun the striking exchanges would be between these guys. And so, as MMA fans, we are conditioned to understand that we're not going to get to see that. So, I will say that if Jacasey does choose to strike with Johnson, as good as he can be there, this is a guy who was once, supposed to be the next great British striker. I think Johnson gets it done if that's what happens. I trust Michael Johnson's hands so much. They are truly top shelf. But I think he's coming into this fight with one dimension, and I think Jacasey's coming in with multiple. and I think he'll use them however he feels he needs to use them. So even if they do strike early and Johnson lands 1 or 2 clean, I think Jacasey goes right to the takedowns. He may just go to it right out of the gate. His wrestling has looked really good lately. All of a sudden, guys can't get up from under him. Michael Johnson's a weird one because he'll stuff some takedowns beautifully, but then he'll like get taken down and get subbed in a 30-second time span. So it's like he's weird with how susceptible he can be at times. So I hate that I'm doing this. I love the boy Michael Johnson, but I'm going to have to go with Jacasey to win a wrestling-based UD.
Yeah, I want to say that Michael Johnson is experienced enough and has developed skills enough to be good enough everywhere to win this fight and to keep it standing. But I think the younger Jacasey is going to be also the much stronger guy in there. I mean, you look at both these guys' physiques. Michael Johnson's never been the biggest 55er. So I do think, just looking on paper, the mileage, the miles on Michael Johnson's body, the youth and athleticism of Jacasey, and the strong grappling. Yeah, I want it to be a knockout win for Michael Johnson because I've been rooting for him since Tough Days. But yeah, I'll say UD for Jacasey. I think that's the smart pick. I don't always make smart picks, but I'm going to make it this time. Sometimes I pick right here. That's my heart.
Oh, you got one coming up. 2 more fights.
Yeah. Here we go. Lightweight bout again. This time between Clay the Carpenter Guida taking on Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman. So, Clay Guida, the 40-year-old out of Round Lake, Illinois. He has a professional record of 37 wins and 22 losses. He has as many wins as guys have records, and he also has as many losses as guys have records. Of his 37 wins, 7 have come by way of knockout, 14 have come by way of submission, and 15 have come by way of decision, and 1 other. I wonder if it's a DQ win or something like that. Clay Guida is coming off of a loss at the hands of Claudio Puelles submission knee bar back in April of this year. This will be Clay Guida will be making the 34th walk in the UFC, 35th if you're including the WEC. Okay, he'll be standing across from Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman, the 39-year-old out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Although of a similar advanced age, much smaller record for Holtzman, only 14 wins and 5 defeats, 5 knockouts, 2 subs, 7 decisions. And Holtzman also looking to get back into the win column this weekend, coming in with back-to-back losses at the hands of Beneil Dariush and Matheus Gamrot. So nothing to scoff at for Holtzman. Omar, let me send it over to you first this time. Give us your assessment and your pick of Clay Guida versus Scott Holtzman.
Clay Guida's an OG, man. He's been around for forever. Has fought basically everybody. Has never, unfortunately, to my recollection, come close to a title shot, but it's definitely always been somebody who, has respect on his name for what he's done, and especially if you beat him, it does mean something. That being said, Scott Holtzman is, I think, a tall order as far as I'm concerned. His last 2 losses are against real guys. He got starched in both of them, but again, these are heavy elite guys, and I don't think it's anything to kind of scoff at all. His fights before with Jim Miller and Dong Hyun Ma were both fantastic performances from his part. I think he's able to get it done here. I think that he has enough skills here in order to beat Clay Guida, and I'm going to go with Scott Holtzman by unanimous decision.
Okay. Mark, give it to us.
Clay came pretty close. When he beat Pettis in Pettis' debut, his next fight was against Benson Henderson, and the winner fought Frankie, which happened to be Benson and not him.
And that was because Anthony Pettis lost that fight, because Pettis was supposed to get that title shot, but he didn't because of the rematch between Frankie and...
Right.
Thank you. I always forget that boy's name. Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah, Guida was up there at one point in time, and even in the earlier days than that, like back when he was having his fights with Diego and stuff, Guida had a prime that was pretty solid. But yeah, I like Holtzman in this one. Holtzman is a slight favorite, -165. Guida is +135. I just think Holtzman matches up pretty well with Guida's game. I think Holtzman likes to be in tight. I think that's where he generally will hurt guys in the clinch, in dirty boxing range. I think his wrestling is at a level that can combat Guida's wrestling enough. He's strong. He's hard to control in any way. And because of that, if most of this fight does happen on the feet, then I don't really see how Guida can get it done. So I will go with Scott Holtzman. Despite the long layoff of a year and a half, I will go with him by UD. I could see it finish, but I'll go UD Scott Holtzman.
Okay. This is going to be a scrap, boys. This is going to be a scrap. My man Clay Guida always tries to pull the opponent into his kind of fight. And I'm going to say he gets it done this time. I'm going to say Clay Guida is going to get it done by, of course, a split decision. Because there's going to be a lot of grappling. There's going to be a lot of bopping around. That hair is going to be going all over the place. I'm going to say that he somehow gets 2 judges to give him this victory.
Mike on the dogs tonight.
Yeah, let's go.
Like it.
Okay, women's strawweight bout between Angela Hill and Emily Ducote. Overkill. Angela Hill, the 37-year-old out of San Diego, California. San Diego. Had to do it. Only millennials get that joke. Thank you. Only millennials get that joke. Angie Hill, 14-12 as a pro, 5 knockouts, 9 decisions, coming off of a win against Lupita Godinez. Ducote, the 28-year-old out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 12-6 as a pro with 3 knockouts, 4 subs, has never been knocked out herself. She is riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night. Most recently, a UD over Jessica Penne. Mark, let me send it over to you first. Give us your assessment and then your pick of Angela Hill versus Emily Ducote.
Ducote, the favorite, slightly, -125. Angie's even money as the dog, +100. So not the biggest dog in the world, but this is where I'm going to join you on the dogs here. Ducote's legit. We know the skills that she has, well-rounded game. She tore Jessica Penne up in her debut. But I think that Ducote, while a solid striker, is just coming up against a really good striker. I think Angela Hill can win these exchanges. And I don't think that Ducote has too much success taking her down either. I really liked how Angie looked in terms of the takedown D in the last fight. Ducote is not any overwhelming takedown artist. I think we're going to see mostly exchanges on the feet, and I think Angela Hill can win these exchanges. I don't think that she is someone who allows her legs to get chewed up. I think she is too fast, has solid movement. I think she throws better combos than Ducote does. I think she'll be quick on the counter. She eats shots well. I just think it's a good matchup for Angie. I've had this thought before and been wrong, but I like this one for her. And I will go with her. I'll say Angie Hill, UD.
Omar, take it.
Yeah, I like Angela Hill. It's difficult with her sometimes, though, right? Because she has very up and down moments. Her performances are usually razor thin, even if you think she wins those fights. And Ducote is definitely nothing to play around with. Her last fight with Jessica Penne was a real problem. I mean, she beat the shit out of Jessica Penne. Don't make no mistake about it. I do like Angela Hill. I've been on the Angela Hill train. Can't really jump off of it at this point, especially with her having a win recently, even with her string of losses before then. So I'm going to go with Angela Hill by unanimous decision. I also think that she has enough skill to do more damage, take less damage, stay on the outside, and really just kind of work for 3 rounds.
Absolutely. So what's the pick? Your pick?
Angela Hill, UD.
Okay, guys, let's go. So Emily Ducote, of course, she's made a bit of a splash. She's coming in 4-0 to this fight. She looked tremendous in her UFC debut just one fight ago. Like Omar said, beating up Jessica Penne. And Jessica Penne is a talented fighter, well-rounded, talented fighter. And she's coming off of the Invictus Strawweight Championship, and Invictus no joke. Let's not forget, though, that Angela Hill was also the Invictus Strawweight Champion back in 2016. So, for me, no-brainer. I'm going with my girl, Angela Hill. Unanimous decision.
Wow. Didn't expect us to all be on Hill there.
Yeah, right?
I mean, I knew Mike was going to pick Angela Hill.
I thought you both were going to take Ducote.
It crossed my mind. I'll be honest, man. Ducote's
she's good. She's
a gamer, man. She's definitely a gamer.
What are the odds again, Mark?
Tight. Angie's even plus 100, and Ducote is minus 125.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, the featured prelim bout in the welterweight division between Nico Price and Philip Rowe. Nice fight. God, this card. By the way, have you, listeners and viewers, have you guys been following along at just how good this card is? Like, we're like only halfway through this card. There's so many more fights. It only gets better from here.
And those two girls were like borderline top 10 strawweights.
Right. And this is a fight night card. Oh, I love nights like this.
Yeah.
It's like I get to watch a pay-per-view for free. Let's go. Okay, Nico Price. Let me set this up. The 33-year-old out of Cape Coral, Florida. 15-5, 2 no contests, 10 knockout victories on his record. Add 3 subs to that. Most recently, a UD over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. He's going to be standing across from the Fresh Prince Philip Rowe out of Queens, New York. Let's go. 9-3 as a pro. No decisions. All wins by finish. 5 knockouts, 4 subs. Back-to-back wins coming into this weekend. Most recently, the TKO over Jason Witt. Omar, sending it over to you first. Give us your take and your pick of Price and Rowe.
Man, I really like both these guys. This is a fantastic fight. Nico Price is one of those guys that's very energetic, seems to have energy for days, does a lot of crazy shit inside of the cage. Philip Rowe, I would say, can be similar, but a lot more technical in that respect. So he definitely has the pace for it, but he's just a lot more technical with his striking and his entries. It's almost like a controlled chaos versus real technique fight. And it's very difficult to figure out who's going to win here because Nico Price makes such a fantastic career out of being chaotic. And although he's lost his last few fights, he won against Oliveira, but he's had some problems with Michel Pereira. He's had some problems with Vicente Luque. I don't know what happened in the Donald Cerrone fight. I don't know why I can't remember what happened there and why it was overturned.
It was a draw originally, so I forget why the overturn. Might have been weed or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't know. But a lot of his wins have also come by opportunity, not even necessarily because he was winning the fight, just because an opening presented itself and Nico was able to take those opportunities that quickly. So anything could really happen in this fight. I 100% think this is going to be a barn burner from beginning to end, however long it takes. So with all that being said, I just think Philip Rowe might have just the smallest edge over Nico Price. And I think he might get it done. I think it's going to be too violent to go to decision for all 3 rounds. I'm going to go with Philip Rowe, KO, round 2.
Okay, Mark, give it to us.
Another one, tight odds. A lot of odds in the hundreds on this card, which you'd love to see. This one is Nico Price minus 140, Phil Rowe plus 115. So, yeah, Phil Rowe's tricky for anyone because of his size. First off, I didn't even know he was a Queens guy. Totally missed that. But yeah, he's going to be 3 inches taller than Nico here. He's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage, which is pretty significant. So that is something that Price will have to deal with. And I do think Rowe is getting better and better. He seems more comfortable, more dangerous with each fight as he kind of figures himself out a bit in the UFC. And I didn't love seeing the way that Nico looked against Alex Oliveira. I thought he suddenly looked overwhelmingly slow all fight long, to the point that I was very confused at how he could look so slow. So factoring in all those things, I feel like I should be picking Phil Rowe. For some reason, I don't think I'm ready to do that. I don't know why. It's just striking me that Phil Rowe is going to have to get turned back and reset here. Nico's very well rounded. I could see that coming to bear. His pressure, his ability to take shots and keep coming to deliver his own, his ability to clinch or mix it up with some grappling. I think all of that may be able to keep Rowe a little off balance in this fight. I could certainly see it being a scrap. I could even see there being a point where what I'm kind of afraid of with Rowe, like him catching Nico hard, Nico dropping, I could see a round like that Rowe totally takes, but Nico survives. But for some reason, I'm seeing a Nico decision, so may not be the smart pick here because Rowe's a dangerous guy. But I'm going to say Nico Price wins a decision in a scrap.
Wow, interesting.
Interesting.
So I'm taking Philip Rowe here. As much as I love me a Nico Price fight, and I do, I think he's too chaotic sometimes. And to your point, Mark, he did look very slow in his last outing. And I'm going to go with the guy with the 100% finish rate. And I think he's going to get Nico Price out of there, handing him another TKO loss since his last one against Vicente Luque. I'll say round number 3 because Nico Price is a dog, and he's going to hang on and hang on. But I think Rowe's going to get him out of there in the 3rd. Moving on. Moving on up into the main card of UFC Fight Night. Wonderboy versus Holland on ESPN and ESPN Plus. In the middleweight division, a bout between Eric Anders and Kyle Dawkins. So let me set this up real quick. Eric, ya boy, Anders, out of Alabama, 35 years old, 14-7 with 1 no contest, 8 knockouts on his record. He is, though, looking to get back into the win column with back-to-back losses in his last 2 outings. Most recently, a split decision loss at the hands of Jun Young Park, or Jun Young Park? I think that's right. Yeah, he'll be standing across from Kyle the Darce Knight Dawkins out of Philly, 29 years old, 11-3 with 1 no contest as well. 9 submissions on his record. Also looking to get back into the win column, most recently losing to Roman Dolidze. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick of Anders versus Dawkins.
It's a very interesting fight because Kyle Dawkins just had a rough outing against Roman Dolidze, but he's not a terrible fighter. He's got some interesting ground game, some interesting grappling that he likes to utilize. I'm not the biggest fan of his striking, but his ground game, I think, more than makes up for it most of the time. Eric Anders has always been a coin flip, or at least has been for the longest time now. He's got a lot of tools. Seems like he has a hard time putting it together. Relies on really sloppy takedowns and really sloppy grappling to win or to advance a fight, especially when he gets tired and when the fight gets a little messy. I don't think he's going to be able to get away with a lot of that stuff with Kyle Dawkins. And I think he relies on that a lot more, has been relying on that a lot more than he used to. So I'm going to go with Kyle Dawkins here by unanimous decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a really grindy-ass fight.
Okay, Mark.
So Dawkins is the favorite. He's minus 220. Eric Anders is plus 180. This is a weird choice to me to lead off the main card. I feel like every single fight we've discussed so far might have been a better choice, so I don't really get this placement. It's a tough fight for me to pick as well because I genuinely think both of these guys have looked kind of bad lately, but more so Anders. Dawkins has only lost to guys whose talent I really respect in this division: Brendan Allen, Phil Hawes, Roman Dolidze. Whereas Anders, I feel like, just never does anything all that much. So I will roll with Kyle Dawkins here. Maybe some distance, in and out striking, some sneaky grappling, maybe a back take or two. I just could see kind of a swarmy performance for Daukaus where Anders struggles to get off a little bit and Daukaus takes it on the cards.
I couldn't agree more. I'm taking Kyle Daukaus by decision. I'm going to say UD. I, for some reason, have never been high on Eric Anders. I'm like, he's a guy. He's in middleweight. He's there. Yep. I've never been like, oh my God, Eric Anders. But he has a nice record. That being said, I will take Daukaus with the skill set by UD. It's gonna be 30-27s across the board, I think. Trying to get a little specific with my UD pick.
Like it.
Let's move on, because this is maybe the fight I'm most looking forward to on the whole card. In the heavyweight division,
Wait, did you skip one, Mike?
Did I? Son of a bitch. Which one?
Unless they shuffled the bout order.
Okay, who is next on your bout order?
I thought it was Hermansson next. It is Hermansson next.
I thought that fight was scrapped for some reason.
No,
It
no.
was
Hermansson was
supposed to
supposed
be-
to fight Brunson, and now he's fighting Roman Dolidze instead.
Okay. I thought for some reason that was off the card.
I think we were all winning with that fight change, as far as I'm concerned.
I would have rather seen Brunson personally, but this is fine.
Okay.
I like this one better.
Mark, if you already have that all pulled up, because I don't have anything on that, because I thought that was off the card. Why don't you set that up?
So this one, as you've been hearing us say, it was supposed to be Jack Hermansson against Derek Brunson. Brunson had to pull out. I don't remember the reason. Omar, do you?
I don't.
I assume he hurt something, but we have Roman Dolidze stepping in on what was, I don't even know, like a week and a half's notice, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But you have Jack Hermansson, who is 23-7 overall. I don't have the cleverness like Mike ready to go, but I'll tell you, 11 KO TKO finishes, 6 subs, 6 decisions, and he's fighting Roman Dolidze, who is 11-1 overall, 6 KO TKOs, 3 subs. He is 5-1 in the UFC at this point. He is riding a 3-fight win streak into this fight, which is his biggest opportunity yet in the UFC for sure. Hermansson on a 1-fight win streak. He rebounded from his loss to Sean Strickland by beating Chris Curtis pretty handily coming into this one. So, yeah, I guess I'll just roll right into it. Hermansson is the favorite, not shocking, being the more established fighter. He's minus 190. Roman Dolidze is plus 160. I do love this fight. I loved the Brunson matchup with Hermansson a little bit more, but this fight is still great. So they did a good job finding a replacement, absolutely. I don't love, though, that it has to be Dolidze coming in on whatever it was, less than 2 weeks' notice. It kind of makes it tough for me to evaluate, and it makes me want to lean toward Hermansson, whereas I think I would have been a lot more torn if they both had a full camp for this fight. But Jack Hermansson's a big man. They're about the same size in actuality, measurement-wise, but I just think Jack fights big. I think his frame is big. He uses his length well with his leg kicks. He punches long. And if he can get on top of you, he's really heavy and hard to get off you. And Dolidze can certainly grapple as well. So Hermansson being able to get on top is maybe a question. But I think that I haven't seen enough from Dolidze's grappling yet to make me think he can necessarily hang there with Hermansson either. So as dangerous as Dolidze has looked, I kind of just trust Jack. You know what Jack does. He fights these very game planning specific fights. He's almost stubborn about it. You're not going to shake him off his game plan. Yes, it's short notice. He's going to have to adjust here, but I just think that he can kind of lean on his experience, the veteran savvy that he has, his ability to fight smart, stick to a game plan, and I think he can rack up the points. I think it just might be too big of a jump for Dolidze to be doing on short notice like this. So I will say Hermansson UD.
Okay, Omar.
I like it, but I'm not going to go with it. I don't really have good reasons for it, but I have this feeling that this is going to be Dolidze's time to shine. I think a lot of people are probably counting him out because of the short notice, But I think Delija is one of those guys that is always training, that is always ready. He seems like the kind of guy that has that kind of mentality. I don't think the short notice is going to affect him as much as probably would others. The most difficult thing is probably going to be the actual adjustment to Hermansson himself. I think preparation-wise, cardio-wise, I think he's going to be good to go, which I think is going to be important for Hermansson fight. I think what Hermansson did in his last fight, basically working from the outside, throwing tons of jabs, I don't think Delija is going to allow that. I think he's savvy enough to be able to get around that, to try to change levels, or at least work counters off of those jabs, whether it be with leg or body kicks, or even slips and working his way inside. So I think Delija has a lot of different tools that he can use. I think a lot of people are counting him out when they shouldn't be, and I think he's going to pull up an upset. So I'm going to go with Delija by unanimous decision. I think he gets 2 out of 3.
I'm going to side with Omar on this one. I have been super impressed by Delija's last few performances. I mean, the guy's been on a tear. He's 11-1 as a pro. He just seems to be a savage, a monster. And I'm going to say that he gets Jack Hermansson out of there. So I'm going to say that he knocks out or TKOs Hermansson in round number 1.
Wow.
Oh, goddamn.
It's going to be a shock, and it's going to be a huge, huge step up for Delija's career.
That would be like announcing contendership if he could pull off something like that. That'd be a big deal.
What do you mean? Announcing contendership?
I said that would be him announcing contendership, like title contendership. If he could, if he beats Jack by UD, I don't think he really gets talked about that way. If he was to knock out Jack in round 1, you'd hear his name in some conversations about matching up with big names.
For sure. Okay. Let's move on.
Now we go to your favorite.
Now for the funnest fight on the card.
That's what I was just checking. Okay. Oh, baby. Woo-hoo. What a fight. What a fight. In the heavyweight division, Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa taking on Sergey Pavlovich. 2 heavy hitters. So setting this up, Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa, the 29-year-old out of Sydney, South Wales, Australia, 14-4 as a pro, 13 knockouts. He is coming off of a loss at the hands of Cyril Gane, where he got knocked out, which snapped a 5-fight win streak in which he finished all 5 fighters in a row: Stefan Struve, Harry Hunsucker, Greg Hardy, Augusto Sakai, and Derek Lewis. He will be standing across, though, from another very talented heavyweight and another very big heavy hitter in Sergey Pavlovich. Pavlovich, the 30-year-old out of Russia, 16-1 with 13 knockouts. His only loss, a knockout loss at the hands of Alistair Overeem back in 2018. Pavlovich riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night. Most recently, also, a TKO victory over Derek Lewis in the first round. Whereas Tuivasa went to war with Derek Lewis and went into the fire with Derek Lewis and finished Derek Lewis in the second round. Towards the end of the second round, Pavlovich just went out there and beat up Derek Lewis in a minute. It was kind of surreal. Anyway, I should have saved that for my piece, but Omar, let me throw it over to you first. Give us your take and your pick of Pavlovich and Tuivasa.
This is a very interesting fight, man. Tai Tuivasa is a fun guy. His technique is very brawly, but he still has technique. And he's very good at what he does. He's been on a real tear. He was the first person to sit Cyril Gane on his ass in a fight. Although he lost that fight, it was well fought, I thought. Nobody really gave him a chance in hell as far as being able to stand and really hold his own with Cyril Gane, considering Cyril Gane has such good technique. But I think he did more than more than what people expected him to do in that fight, and I thought it was a fantastic performance on both sides. With that being said, Sergey Pavlovich is a fucking animal. That's just the reality. Sergey Pavlovich is literally a scary human being every time I see him walk into that cage. The loss against Alistair Overeem, not to make excuses, but it is something to be noted. That was a short notice fight. That was also his debut in the UFC. All of it came really fast. After that loss, that man has been ruining people left and right. I think Pavlovich deserves to be in the elite at this point. I think he's proven it. And I think this is just another one of those fights that's going to help him do just that. And I think he does beat Tai Tuivasa. I don't think he puts him out. But I think he styles on him for 3 rounds. So I go Sergey Pavlovich by UD.
Wow. By UD, interesting. Mark, go ahead.
So Sergey is favored. He's minus 220. Tai is plus
Wow.
180 as the dog. I don't love the booking. First off, I don't love the turnaround time after the damage that Tai took against Cyril Gane. He took so much damage, and this is, what is this, like 3 months? I don't know. I didn't look back.
It's September, yeah.
September early.
September 3rd. Than 3 months? Jesus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not my favorite. I do wish that Tai had taken more time. Like, why can't we just wait for the Perth card? Like, that's coming up. Yeah, obviously, wouldn't we want Tai on that? Like, what are we? If he wins this, are you going to try to turn him around now for the Perth card? I don't. And obviously, if he gets finished here, then are you even putting him on that Perth card? Probably not. So I feel like it made way more sense to just wait and have him be on that card than shoehorning him in here. I also said on this show after his last loss that if the UFC was smart and knew what they had in Tai in terms of the marketability he has, the fan favorite that he's become, that in his next matchup, they would avoid someone like a Sergey Pavlovich. Just so we didn't see Tai get finished 2 fights in a row, potentially, and kind of kill his buzz. Instead, that's exactly who they book him against. So this whole situation is not my favorite use of Tai Tuivasa. With that said, I'm fully considering picking him. It is very hard to pick because I love Tai, both as a fan and a lover of his game. Kind of like Omar said, as much as he's a brawler, I enjoy the technique and the strategy that he brings into the brawls. And, he can give it to guys of any style. But I am also someone who's always respected the skills and the danger that Sergey Pavlovich carries into the cage. I'm 0% shocked that he has reached this level. Always thought he would. Always thought he was this good. He is 1 inch taller than Tai, but he is also going to have a 9-inch reach advantage, which is absurd.
Holy hell.
I know how long Pavlovich is. I know that's like one of his calling cards, and it still catches me off guard every single time we do a preview, and I have to look up his reach. So it's a big factor. So Tai's coming off a fight where he got a little bit exposed against Cyril Gane. We kind of all thought he would because of the style matchup, but Pavlovich is not that guy. Pavlovich is a guy who throws like 20 punches a fight and generally doesn't need any more than that, and he's out of there.
Yeah.
But against Tai Tuivasa, does that happen? Like, does Tai have an off button like that for a one-shot type of finish? Like, yeah, when he accumulates damage, he can break, as we saw against Gane. But does he have that one-shot off button where Pavlovich is just going to hit him and put him down, or is he capable of eating some of these, dialing up the pace a little bit and making Pavlovich have to go a little further and work a little harder, and then maybe things kind of swing? So I'm torn on that. I really am. And as much as I could absolutely see Pavlovich do this, because I do think he's that good and I do think the reach is a huge problem, I am a little stubborn in my love of Tai. And because I'm torn on it, as a fan of Tai, I'm going to say Tai. If I was a little less torn, I wouldn't, but I am, so I will go with him. I'll say he takes some damage, keeps coming, starts to kind of push inside, push Sergey off him a little bit, walk toward him, put a pace on him, and find something. So I will say Tai Tuivasa, round 2 TKO.
Wow. I also have scary news. I'm looking at Pavlovich's record. And it looks like every single one of his TKO or knockout victories are all round one. All 13.
That's what happens when you get hit by a goddamn truck.
Yep.
So he only has, this is easy. It's easier to count this way. Only 3 decisions. So look for the decisions. 5.
Not even in the UFC.
When you have that kind of power and you have a 1 foot reach advantage, it's a little hard for guys to not get hit.
Wow. 13 knockouts and all 13 coming in the very first round. Holy shit.
If you look at the way the man physically fights too, the technique is impeccable. I mean, the way he throws things is absolutely fantastic. And it generates a lot of power, and it's not like the fucking guy needs any more. He could throw terribly and still knock somebody out. So he's a scary man.
He is, man. I'm gonna say, Mark, that what you said was sort of like your worst case scenario is what is going to happen. I think that Tai is going to be finished 2 fights in a row. And I will say that the only thing that gets Tai out of the first round is that chin. And I'm going to be worried for him going forward because it would be 2 knockouts within 3 months. And would hope. And I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to get ahead of myself. So I'm going to say round 2 TKO knockout for Pavlovich. He's just the fucking Russian hammer, man.
Yeah, he's scary. I'm going to fucking celebrate on this show next week if Tai pulls this off, though.
I sure hope so. I'm rooting so hard for Tuif Austin, man. I fucking love that guy. Okay, flyweight bout between Matheus Nicolau and Matt Schnell. Let's go. Also very excited for this one. How could you not be? Here we go. Nicolau, the 29-year-old out of Brazil. He's 18-2 with 1 draw, 4 knockouts, 5 subs. He's coming into this Saturday night with a 5-fight win streak. Most recently, a UD over David Dvorak. Matt Danger Schnell, the 32-year-old out of Louisiana, 16-6 with 1 no contest, 9 submissions on his record. One of them, most recently, over Sumaderji, a classic back in July of this year. If you haven't watched it and you have ESPN Plus, do yourself a favor. Go watch this crazy fight between Sumaderji and Matt Schnell. Mark, why don't we start with you first this time? Give us your assessment and your pick of Schnell versus Nicolau.
So it's wide. Nicolau is minus 400. Matt Schnell is plus 300.
Oh, wow.
Schnell is 2 inches taller. He does have a 4-inch reach advantage, and he is in the G Hall of Fame forever after the W against Sumaderji. But I'm not going to pick him in this fight. Nicolau is very good, and maybe even better than people still realize at this point. I think that as scrappy as Matt Schnell is, and as much as he's going to push it in this fight, he's just not as skilled as Nicolau is, not in the striking, not in the wrestling, not in the grappling. I just think he is a notch behind in every category. Could he do a Matt Schnell thing where he makes it ugly and he's such a dog that some crazy shit happens? I'm sure he could. But I think Nicolau is just generally winning a fairly competitive fight that kind of takes place everywhere, and he stays a step ahead. So I will say he wins a clear 29-28 UD, if not even a 30-27. I like his talent.
Okay, Omar, go for it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The Sumaderji fight was a wild-ass fight, no doubt about it. But Matt Schnell was getting lit up before the end of that fight, and his determination is what got him through it. But the opportunities that he presents in a fight, that he allows to show up in a fight, those holes were the reason why that fight was even half as exciting as it ended up being, was because he allowed himself to get his ass handed to him for just a little bit before he came back. I don't think Matheus Nicolau is going to allow any such comeback if an opportunity like that arises. I think Nicolau is just a little too tight for that. I think he's a little too precise. I think he's a lot sharper than Sumaderji is. and I think he's going to be able to find some kind of finish. I don't think he'll be able to find an off switch per se, but I do think he's going to be able to overwhelm Machinel to the point where the fight's going to have to get called. So I'm going to go with Nicolau TKO round 3.
You got to remember that Sumudaerji was winning that fight with Machinel, and his dog ability is what got him through that fight until the tide turned. And he gave us an all-time moment, the double money signs on the ground with an unconscious Sumudaerji on top of him.
Yes. Unconscious.
But we are unanimous for this one, guys. Clearly, I think Matheus Nicolau is the more talented guy, the rising star, so to speak. I'm going to go with Omar's pick. I'm going to say round 3 TKO for Matheus Nicolau. Okay, moving on to the co-main event of this UFC fight night. In the welterweight division, a bout between Brian Bam Bam Barberena and Rafael Dos Anjos. So Barberena, the 33-year-old out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, 18-8 as a pro with 11 knockouts, riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this weekend. The most recent 2 of them getting wins over a couple of legends, being Matt Brown and Robbie Lawler. Another legend this weekend, he'll be standing across from Rafael Dos Anjos, the former UFC lightweight champion. Dos Anjos, the 38-year-old, of course, out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He is 31-14 as a pro with 10 submissions on his record. He is looking to bounce right back from a loss, a knockout loss at the hands of Rafael Fiziev back in July of this year. Mark, let's send it over to you first. Give us your take and your pick, RDA versus Barberena.
So I was very curious to see how much respect the odds would give to Barberena, and the answer is not much. He is plus 400. RDA is minus 550.
Holy shit.
Damn.
Minus 550 favorite. And I get it, frankly. Brian Barberena is a guy who can shine in a fight where a guy is willing to brawl. And he has had back-to-back fights that kind of allowed just for that. Not brawl, but willing to exchange. He had Matt Brown. He had Robbie Lawler. They're both looking to do the same thing. Yep. Played into his hands. It's made him look good as of lately. As of late. RDA ain't that guy. RDA is going to come in. He's going to kick the legs. He's going to change the levels of attack. He's going to change the speed of attack. He's going to grapple when he sees an opening. He's going to keep Barberena down there if it hits the ground. And I know RDA is getting up there in age, and he's kind of bouncing around divisions now, and he said that maybe he's moving on from having title aspirations and he just wants fun fights. But with all that said, he is still a much higher level fighter than Brian Barberena is in my eyes. And unless RDA fights very dumb in this fight, I think this should be his fight. I think he will lean on the wrestling and finish it off with some ground and pound after some damage accumulates. And I'll say it is a round 3 TKO for RDA.
Wow. Omar, give it to us.
I'd have to agree. I don't think RDA gets Barberena out of there. I think Barberena is a tank, but I do see RDA spending a lot of time against the cage, a lot of time working single legs, a lot of time dumping Barberena on his ass. I think Barberena is going to have a hard time getting anything off as a result of a lot of those level changes. But I do think there's going to come a point where Barberena is going to be hurt, and he's probably going to get an opportunity to get or land something on RDA and potentially change the tide. RDA has been hurt before and has come back and has been able to survive, and we might see something like that happen. But I think in the end of it, RDA will end up surviving and will end up winning at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. So I go with RDA by unanimous decision.
Okay, you look at RDA's more recent losses. He's lost to Fiziev, rising star. Chiesa, very good welterweight, lightweight. Leon, welterweight champ right now. Kamaru, welterweight champ. Colby, elite welterweight. I'm picking Brian Barberena, guys.
Wow.
Even though he is not, even though this is a terrible segue, he is not of the caliber of the names that I just listed. The thing that gives me, okay, here's where my head's at. The thing that gives me the most pause in this matchup are two things. The age and the size, just to put it simply. I mean, RDA is 38 years old. I mean, Barberena's 33. He's no spring chicken. But RDA being 38 years old with that many fights, he has, 45 fights on his record. It's a lot of miles on his body, and he's only 5'8". Barberena's a legit 6-foot man, and he's a big barrel-chested farm boy, that, as we know, from the Midwest. And I agree that clearly, RDA is going to have the grappling pedigree notch on his belt over Barberena, but I envision him having a hard time getting to Barberena, getting to those hips, and even if he does, I think he's going to have a hard time getting him down and holding him down because Barberena is going to be a bigger, stronger man, and younger. I think that Barberena, I just have a feeling, and I'm not trying to make some crazy underdog pick. I just see Barberena somehow forcing RDA to fight a stupid fight, as you were saying, Mark, in certain spots. And I think that Barberena is going to win by unanimous decision in another huge win of his career. I think he's going to get a win over a third legend in a row. And people are going to have to start giving this guy some respect. If I'm right. We'll see.
I don't hate it. It does admittedly have a little bit of that vibe of a Legends tipping point fight where you're like, oh, fuck. He lost to Brian Barberena? I guess we're kind of on the downward trend here now. It has a little bit of that potential vibe, but yeah, I don't hate your pick.
Barberena, he is a gatekeeper in the opposite direction. Instead of a gatekeeper for up-and-coming guys, he's a gatekeeper for older fighters on the way out. He's ready to show you the door.
He's the legend killer. Matt Brown, Robbie Lawler, RDA.
Right.
Who's left? Who could be next if he gets past RDA? Who else is old at the top of welterweight? Anybody?
Maybe Wonder
Stephen
Boy?
Thompson.
There you go. Yeah, that works.
That'd be a fun fight. Okay.
Speaking of Stephen Thompson.
Speaking of, that's right.
Segue.
Welterweight main event of the evening for this UFC fight night. Here we go, baby. Wonderboy Thompson versus Kevin Holland. So we have Stephen Thompson, 39 years old, out of Simpsonville, South Carolina. In MMA, he is 16-6-1 with 7 knockouts, 8 decisions. Of course, before MMA, he was 98-0 in karate. I don't think that's much of an exaggeration.
No. Yeah, it's not. In kickboxing, I believe, right?
Kickboxing.
Or was it karate? Maybe it was karate. Obviously, he's a karate guy. You might be right.
Yeah, for sure. Thompson's looking to get back into the win column, coming into this weekend with back-to-back losses over against Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. And he will be standing across from a very, very interesting style and physical size matchup in Kevin Holland. Kevin Trailblazer Holland out of Fort Worth, Texas, 30 years old. He is 23-8 with 1 no contest, 13 knockouts on his record. Add 6 subs to that. He is also looking to get right back in the win column because he matched up with Khamzat Chimaev in what was a sort of a weird late notice reshuffle matchup. People gave him a chance. I gave him a chance, but he got choked out in a little more than 2 minutes, snapping a 2-fight win streak for Kevin Holland. So he's looking to get back into the win column. Omar, let me send it over to you first. Give us your assessment and then your pick of Stephen Thompson versus Kevin Holland.
Stephen Thompson has had some issues as of late, right? He's run into a couple walls, and Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns. The very tippy top of the welterweight division is becoming difficult for him to crack to solidify himself a title shot or anything like that. Kevin Holland is one of those guys where I think we're consistently seeing him evolve, consistently seeing him break expectations that we have for him, and other times kind of falling to those expectations. He's still very intriguing, and he's still very willing to learn and grow. And it's not to say Stephen Thompson isn't, but I think the rate of growth, I think, is just a lot more exponential for Kevin Holland than I think at this point it is for Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson's got his game. He knows what it is. He's probably not adding a ton of things to it, maybe sharpening some things up here and there, but Stephen Thompson's game is Stephen Thompson's game. Kevin Holland, he continues to add things to his game. He's still very new to that particular point, I think, in his career. And I think if this was going to be a straight kickboxing match, I think Stephen Thompson takes this one home. But I think Kevin Holland will have enough to at least mix it up, make it interesting. I believe in Kevin Holland. I think he has a lot of potential. And I think Stephen Thompson's trajectory just hasn't been as consistent as it used to be. And Kevin Holland just seems to have that contention in his head, that title contention, I think, as a goal. And I think he's working towards it. And I'm going to ride with him. So I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. And I think he's able to... I think he's going to be able to win at least 3 out of the 5, man. I'm going to go Kevin Holland by split decision.
Oh, split. Wow. All right, Mark. What do you got?
I like that. So Holland is the favorite here. I don't know if you guys expected that or not. He is minus 160.
I did not.
I was very curious to see what the odds were.
Okay.
Minus 160. Wonder Boy's plus 130.
It was pretty close.
Yeah, really close. Yet, I mean, this is an intriguing matchup in a lot of ways. This is a fun main event. I hope Kevin Holland's mind is right. I didn't love that whole retirement stunt after Chimaev. Now he's saying again that if Chimaev gets a title shot, he's going to retire because he thinks it's such bullshit that Chimaev could get a title shot right now. So I don't like all the retirement talk out of him, but hopefully it's just Kevin Holland nonsense and he's focused on the fight. So yeah, you have an elite striker in Wonderboy against a guy whose striking is very underrated, in my opinion, and who's also going to have a 3-inch height and 6-inch reach advantage in Kevin Holland. Then you have a guy in Holland who has, in Wonderboy, who has proven to be vulnerable on the ground against a guy who may choose to mix in some grappling in Holland, where I also think he's underratedly effective. So as elite as Wonderboy is in what he does, I think Holland is God, I can't stop mixing up their names. I think Holland is underrated in kind of every area in how he could give problems to Wonderboy. So I could see it playing out in a couple ways. I could see Holland hurting Wonderboy just as easily as I could see Wonderboy kind of frustrating him and making him look a step behind. And that's exactly what he did in his last 2 wins to other top-shelf welterweights in Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal. Both of those guys were, like, super frustrated, step behind, literally like, why can't I get anything I do to work? Because Wonderboy is that freaking crafty and tough of a puzzle to crack on the feet. It took guys who would introduce the grappling in Burns and Bilal to give him his recent losses. But on that note, I think Kevin Holland's game is not as straightforward as those 2 guys in Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque. I think he presents more unpredictability, more ability to change things up, to come at weird angles, to mix in some random grappling, even if it's not to try to necessarily bring you down and hold you down, just to kind of change how the fight is looking. So I think he's a little more of a trickier puzzle for Wonderboy than maybe those guys necessarily were. And we do have 5 rounds of this, and I think 5 rounds is a long time to keep a guy as dynamic as Kevin Holland from hurting you. And remember, Holland was a middleweight. So you'd expect him to be the bigger, stronger guy. He's probably the more explosive guy, though Wonderboy is explosive himself, but he's getting a little bit older. And I think he's getting like 1 step slower. And I think that 1 small step may cost him here. Not to mention, no one finishes Kevin Holland on the feet. So he's going to get his time, I think, to work. And he's going to be talking to Wonderboy the whole fight. You wonder how that plays into what Wonderboy's doing. So there's a lot of interesting angles, but I am going to say Kevin Holland finds it. Maybe he's even losing before he finds it, but I'll say he does. I think either a club and sub or just a club and more club. I'll say round 3, and I guess for the need of an official prediction, I will go club and more club. TKO round 3.
And Omar, you took Wonderboy by split, or you took Holland by split?
I took Holland by split.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what you said, Mark, of the talking in there, because Kevin Holland is a unique in-fight talker in that he's like, he talks, but he's still like, he's like nice. He's like constantly like just like chit-chatting like with his opponent. And I wonder how that's going to affect the also very nice Wonderboy Thompson.
The NMF.
It is weird because it's almost like Kevin Holland doesn't even really talk shit. He's just literally having a conversation with you.
He just talks.
And a part of me having
talks about your techniques, about what you're trying to do.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that
part
was
of
nice.
me, I've rewatched the Jacare fight 3 or 4 times now, and a part of me genuinely thinks that's why Jacare lost. He got into a whole conversation with Kevin Holland while Kevin Holland is having a beat down in his face and just lost concentration.
Yep.
I think it's so crazy. I don't know. I think it's so weird, man. But I really do think that he's going to have a whole conversation with
that was such a
Stephen
nasty
Thompson
finish.
in there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the punching down thing was probably one of the most brutal things I've ever seen.
Wasn't he punching up from his back?
Up.
But once he got up and Jacare was kind of already dazed, Jacare was on his knees, kind of tilted back.
Yes.
And Holland just pile driving him downward. That shit is terrible. That was wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I need to make a pick. I agree with you guys. I'm going to be picking Kevin Holland here.
Wow. All on Holland.
Look, I love Wonderboy. He's like one of my all-time favorite guys, right? And but look, he's 39, taking on a guy who's 30.
Fuck.
In his, Holland is in his physical, athletic prime, fighting prime, who's 3 inches taller, has a significant reach advantage. I think Holland is going to be. Wonderboy, he is kind of fast, but he's, to your point, Mark, you said crafty. He is. He's quick because he's sneaky, and he's excellent with his karate. But overall, I think Holland's going to be the younger, more athletic, faster, stronger guy. And I think in between the chit-chatting, I think he's going to get inside of that kicking range of Wonderboy's. And I do think that Kevin Holland is going to stun Wonderboy and swarm, probably get on top. I think he's going to finish him with hammer fists. I'll say round number 4.
Wow.
TKO.
I'll tell you what, man. This is the one for Kevin Holland. Like, he has been a guy who has felt like he was on the verge of joining the elite of a division, used to be middleweight, now it's welterweight, for a while. And like, the trigger has not been pulled. And I fear that if it doesn't get pulled right now, we may not ever see it. Like, he needs to get this one.
Agreed. And this is the right matchup for him. It's not a guy in Nishimaev who's going to wrestle him into dust.
Yep.
It's a striker in Wonderboy. So Holland's going to get to stand up and try to do what he does. But I don't know who said it, which one of you said it, but I do think it will be important for Holland to make this an MMA fight and not just a kickboxing fight. Because that is the only path to victory for Wonderboy.
Totally agree.
So we'll see. Can't wait. Can't wait, man.
Wonderboy looks fucking stupid for 40 years old. I would have never guessed that dude is 40 years old. That's crazy.
He still looks like he's
it's crazy.
30.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It helps that he
Great
dresses like very young as well, I feel like.
He does. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we've done it again. Let's end with a little bit of trivia.
Let us.
So did either of you predict that I was going to have Clay Guida trivia?
No. Didn't.
No.
Because he's on this card. And he is the grandpa on the card.
I see there's a lot of stuff to pull from with Clay Guida as your target.
Here we go. So George St. Pierre sits atop the list of most takedowns landed all-time, all fighters with 90. GSP, 90 takedowns landed. And also bear in mind, this is just within the UFC. Although that doesn't really matter for this question, I guess. Clay Guida sits at number 5 on that list with how many takedowns landed? Is it A, 72, B, 75, C, 80, or D, 84?
What was GSP's number?
90. And he is number 1. Clay Guida is number 5.
Tell me the numbers one more time.
72, 75, 80, or 84.
I'm going to go with A, 72.
That's funny. That's exactly what I was going to say. I guess I'll switch to B just so we have some variety.
The answer is A, 72.
We would have both. That would have been wild that we both got that. I mean, we. Really
I was about to say, and then you just changed it to make it interesting.
Well, I just tried to make it fun, but we would have both nailed that. That's crazy.
And,
I will say the only
Clay
thing
Guida,
is 80 and 85 were just too on the money for that to be the actual number. It was either 72 or 84. I guess that's a fair point. It just didn't seem, I don't know, didn't seem right. I went for the random number there.
Real quick, special note. So he sits, Clay Guida, all time, 5th all time for takedowns landed. And if he lands 3 takedowns this weekend, it will move him solely into 3rd place all time for takedowns landed, passing Frankie Edgar, who has 73 and just retired, and Demetrius Johnson, who is who has 74, and Gleison Tibau, who has and he will be behind only Gleison Tibau who has 84 and GSP who has 90.
Jesus!
Wow, Gleison Tibau. Look at that.
Stud. What an underrated stud.
Fun one. Fun episode.
We did it. It was a long one. It's time to go to bed.
It was time to go home.
God damn, it's so late.
Ugh. Well, folks, enjoy this awesome fight night card this Saturday night, as well as the one championship fights, doubleheader, sort of. And that's it. Any parting shots, guys?
I will be going to UFC Orlando, so I will be there. Yeah, I will be putting some pictures and stuff like that up, and don't be a creep and try to find me.
We want interviews from the ground, baby.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I'll work on that press pass.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week.
Mike could get you one. He's got enough connects in the industry.
It's true. That's true.
Peace.